call this regular meeting of the Lammersville Unified Board of Education to order at 7 o'clock. Just a reminder, this meeting is being recorded, so if you could please silence or turn off your cell phones at this time, it would be appreciated.
Yeah.
Pardon? Yeah. I'll talk louder. I'm not used to talking through a mask, I guess, again. At this time, if you'd please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Trustee Boulay. Roll call, please.
Lisa Boulay.
Here.
Colin Clements.
Here.
Anita Daniel.
Here.
Stephanie Olson.
Here.
David Pombo.
Here.
Anita Jathendra.
Absent.
Approval and/or corrections to the agenda.
There are none.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
On a motion by Trustee Clements and seconded by Trustee Olson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Committee reports. I don't believe there are any reports because I don't believe any of the committees have met, but I would like to do the annual assignment of committees at this time. The District Advisory Committee, Board Members Boulay and Pombo. District English Language Advisory Committee, Trustee Clements and Daniel. Education, Trustee Daniel and Trustee Pombo. Facilities, Trustee Clements and Trustee Olson. Policy, Trustee Clements and Trustee Olson. Safety, Trustee Olson and Trustee Pombo. Wellness, Trustee Boulay and Trustee Pombo. I hope those assignments are acceptable to all of my fellow board members.
Yes.
Moving on to governing board reports. How about if we start with Trustee Clements this time?
Since the last board meeting, I was able to visit the high school and see our summer school in action. It was great to be able to see the live in-person learning. I also attended the CSD meeting for July and reported in about the great things happening in our district. End of my report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Trustee Olson.
I was invited to attend the Mountain House Tracy Tennis Foundation Awards held in Mountain House, California, and got a look at what this organization is doing for our youth. And I thought it was really great to learn that their organization supports not just adults, but about 150 students in our town, take lessons from them. And if you add that into the 150 students for flag football tennis, that's 300 children in our town that are playing tennis. Got me excited thinking about the fact that our high school program can dominate for years to come. And also grateful for these organizations for providing a way for our students to do something during a lockdown when there wasn't a lot for them to do. I was really impressed with what the organization is doing. And then just by chance, it was a random, I promise I wasn't trying to go over anybody's head by not scheduling with the superintendent first, but there was an opportunity to volunteer for the garden, laying down plastic, and I showed up. And by the time I got there from my gym workout, they had it all done, but it's looking really great, the garden by the CTE building. And I just wanted to say thank you to the people that are getting that going. I think it's a great thing for our students. And I also learned that someone here, maybe I did a dissertation on school gardens that would be interesting to read someday. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Trustee Boulay.
Earlier this week, viewed the CSBA's webinar regarding hospital grade UVC disinfection and how it can be applied to school districts and classrooms. And I was just impressed with the technology, and it's interesting to see how companies are helping organizations deal with the pandemic and keeping our environments clean. That's all I have.
Thank you. Trustee Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Pombo. So on June 26th, along with Trustee Olson, I had the opportunity to attend the Premier League award ceremony at the Mountain House Tracy Tennis Foundation, and along with our CST board member, Mr. Harry Dillon, too. So it was, as Stephanie Olson mentioned, it was an awesome event, which was hosted at the backyard of our Mountain House resident. And to just learn that around 300 students are being, coached at the Central Park was amazing. And they did let us know about a few requests, which I'm sure the board member, I can see Raghu here. Which I had requested Raghu to come and present to the public as a public comment so that it can be presented to the board, and then we can follow up on it. That was on June 26th. July 17th, I had the opportunity to be invited to the Koday Villa event at the Central Park, and it was conducted by Windmill Families Community. It was a very well-organized event, which focused predominantly on traditional games, which we used to play back in India. So it was really fun to see all of them play those games here and the children to be exposed to those games. And everyone enjoyed it amidst a lot of heat, and they kept us hydrated. So it was a very fun event, and I was privileged to be there representing us as LUSD. And I also got the opportunity to be there with our CSD member, Mr. Harry Dillon. On July 18th, I had the opportunity to visit, to actually view a cricket game at the Hanson Park, which is hosted by MSCCC. And it was the Hanson Park, so it was a fun game. Actually, cricket is very close to our hearts because we play a lot back home, and I myself have played it when I was young. So it was like really fun to watch. And when I was there, I did hear there was a request from the MHCC club with regards to the water scheduling at the park. And again, I have requested the board members, and I think Vara and Srikant are here. So they will be presenting the request as a public comment, and then for the board to hear, and then we can follow up on their request based upon what we hear from them. Then I would, lastly, I would like to wish our Muslim friends, Muslim students, Muslim community, Eid Mubarak. I have Muslim friends back home and here, and I've always enjoyed the festival because I always enjoy their biryani. They share biryani, so it's the yummiest biryani ever. But this time I had the opportunity, I wanted to know more about Eid because to me, when I was growing up, it was all about biryani. So I did request a student, a graduated student of Mountain House, to share with me what do they do when they do, how do they celebrate Eid? So this is what she gave me. The day of Eid al-Adha starts with a special morning prayer. The rest of the day is spent celebrating with friends and family. It's very common to exchange gifts, money, and food, and we also greet each other by saying Eid Mubarak, which translates to blessed Eid. It's also a tradition for women to get mehendi, and that's the fun stuff about Eid. So this is a very, very important event for Muslims, and I would like to take this opportunity as you're celebrating to wish everyone Eid Mubarak. And that ends my report.
Thank you. Earlier today, I attended a virtual conference that was put on by San Joaquin County Office of Education on building equity and emotional resilience. I learned a lot on the subject and gained a lot of insights that I hope to use in the future. Also, last week, I sat on the interview panel for the vice principal for Mountain House High School, and that concludes my report. receiving of public comment. The board shall give members of the public an opportunity to address the board either before or during the board's consideration of each agenda item. At a time so designated on the agenda, members of the public may also bring before the board matters that are not listed on the agenda of a regular meeting. The board may refer such matter to the superintendent or designee or take it under advisement, but shall not take action at that time. The board may place the matter on the agenda of a subsequent meeting for discussion or action. Individual speakers shall be allowed 3 minutes to address the board on each agenda or non-agenda item. The board shall limit total time for public input on each item to 20 minutes. Although Trustee Daniel mentioned that there were some people here for public comments, I do not have any blue card.
And I guess that we didn't explain that well, and so it's probably just,
So if anyone would like to come forward and give public comments at this time, yes, come forward. Please state your name and then
Good
comment.
evening, everyone. My name is Raghu Malapaka, and I'm a resident of Bethany Village for almost 5.5 years. And also I'm the president of Mountain House Tracy Tennis Foundation, which we started last year. This is a request that I made last year, but because of pandemic, we couldn't take it forward. So one of the things that we are experiencing right now is because of the COVID, tennis really became a very popular sport in Mountain House as well as elsewhere too. Our organization itself has about 100 people plus, and we have several kids getting coached in the only 3 tennis courts that are available at the Central Park. So you can imagine a lot of people who want to play are not able to get the opportunity to play because simply there is no availability of the courts. Of course, I know the high school courts are available to reserve, but the cost is extremely prohibitive. You have to reserve for a minimum of 2 hours, and you need to reserve all 6 courts. And if you just add up everything, it comes to about $120 an hour. So my request to the trustees is, please look into the matter. And for example, at Central Park, we can reserve individual court for $3 or $6 based on resident, non-resident. If you come up with a model, something like that, where you could reserve individual court for a reasonable price, that would really help the community. And also, again, it will help the youth because we have lots of kids that want to get trained, but they don't have opportunity. Mountain House is a unique community where we are really closely knit, and we don't have a lot of places to go. Sport is a huge entertainment, no matter what. So I really request the trustees look into it, and I made some suggestions to Vanita Daniel about what we are looking for, and I hope you take a look at it and discuss it further.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could ask the superintendent to have someone from the district office reach out to the gentleman and help him, guide him through the process of what he needs to do.
absolutely.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Come forward, please state your name and make your comment.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving this opportunity, the forum. I'm Varaprasad. I'm from MSCCC, Mountain House Cricket Club, the president of MSCCC. So MSCCC is, just to give a brief description, a little bit about MSCCC. It started in 2009 with 9 people. Now it was to give like coaching for the kids as well as the adults to have the cricket, because in international level it is very hype on all over the world, and most of the people are interested to play over the cricket. So that's why like we started in 2009, and I've been in Mountain House from past 7 years. And yeah, so right now we have like couple of requests, because right now we have like 250 adults and 150 kids which were training right now in MSCC, Mountain House Cricket Club, with the different cricket academies are involved with our, tied up with MSCC. So from the past month also, we requested LUSD because the cricket is where we play with 11 people in one side, and where it requires a ground where it should not be wet and it should be a dry, and they have to run between the mat and as well as the ground as well. So whenever the ground is wet, so people get like injured. So that is a possibility. And most of my games were like last week or before also, we got cancelled because the ground is little wet, and we are like scared of conducting the matches over there, and even the kids also. So the same request we have sent to the CSD, so they have taken our action on that, and they considered the request, and they stopped the water flow on different timings instead of the playing timings. Right now, what happens is we are games starting at the morning 7 to 11 o'clock, and the water starts at 6 o'clock. So that makes like complete ground is wet, and it is hard to conduct the game for the people. So, and even kids also, it starts at 9 o'clock, and 9 to 11 it starts, and the coaching will start in Central Park. Right now we have reserved that, and the rest of the things like we have wanted to reserve for the future kids as well. So that is the main consideration. We consolidated, we requested Sonia name, and she was taking care. She is the one, she coordinates every time and help us to control the flow. And what we request is, if possible, try to on Fridays, because the game is conducted on Saturday and Sunday, and weekdays we won't conduct anything. And if Friday evening, if possible, get the water flow, and our evening times would be best. At least it will save us playing the cricket on the morning times for the both members as well as the youth. And second concern is like we have to book the grounds all over the year. We will play the things.
I apologize, your time is
Just 2 seconds.
up. If I could ask the superintendent to have district staff help this gentleman with his.
You're going to get your 2 seconds with that big guy right there. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, sir, come forward and state your name, please.
Name is Henry Peter, been a Wickland resident since 2005. It's quite a number of years. This is on the education mode that we are going to continue, and I received a mail on independent study mode that it's going to resume. My kids are they'll be in the 8th grade in Wickland Elementary. And considering the mode it's going to be, right, with even though my kids are vaccinated, it's going to be a mixed mode with kids who are not vaccinated. And considering the seriousness of transmission, Delta variant and all that, right, as you very well know, all of you, and just wondering on the success which our school has exhibited in the previous years, right, during this pandemic. It's quite an achievement, because when I hear about other schools which could not switch to online, so success has been there, but how do we continue that? And trying to see a combination, right, I would like to see if you could explore that, where you have an independent study but still continue some form of online instruction by the homeschool teachers. So if that's a mode, and it's not just me, because I've spoken to other friends as well, they all have similar thoughts and concerns, if we could continue like that. So I thought I'll put forward to the board here. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. We will be having a presentation on the independent study and how all that works and why we can or can't do certain things and all that. If you'd like to stay for the meeting, you can.
Oh, today, is it?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Thank you. Moving on to consent items for consideration. Governing board meeting minutes, contracts under $50,000, ratification of warrants list for June 2021, ratification of 2021-2022 new hires, ratification of resignations, 2021-22 fundraisers, and acceptance of a donation of 16 pallets of hand sanitizer valued at $30,237.36, donated by Safeway to Lammersville Unified School District. Would any of the board members like to pull any of these items or discuss them further.
I don't necessarily want to pull anything out, Mr. President, but I do have a question on item F as in Frank, and I also wanted to say a heartfelt thank you to Safeway for such a generous donation. On the fundraisers, my question for the district, or probably for the board, is the current plan to have whatever mask policy we have in school enforced at fundraising events? And my question is specifically, if the school rules are that, you know, students and teachers are in the classroom, and I'm saying if, because we have to decide what happens, but if the rule is that they have to wear masks indoors and they go to like a carnival or a dinner dance auction, whatever, off-site but indoors, would the same rule apply because the physical presence is the same? Or do we not know that yet?
So I can speak generally to that. So there are still the guidelines are changing.
I know. I'm saying whatever
And-
the rules are.
and it's a sliding scale. So what I can speak to is right now, and tomorrow it could be different, but I don't believe so. I think it's going to stay. There's a different set of expectations tied to school and school instruction with children who are unvaccinated. And there's a rule for masks, an expectation there. It's also for public transportation, and it's also for, I want to say, medical offices, okay? Then there's more of a policy orientation to it. So if you had an adult-only event outdoors for a fundraiser, the guidelines may say that you don't have to mask, but practice social distancing. If you had an adult-only fundraiser indoors, then the guidance could say, like it says right now outside, that vaccinated people have to wear masks, unvaccinated people are strongly recommended to wear masks. That's literally what it is today. So I think it's going to depend on the circumstance and whether or not kids are there to be able to specifically answer your question.
Okay, and my question was specifically if kids are present, because if kids aren't present, then it's kind of a different scenario.
Correct.
And I guess I'm not expecting a full answer like right now, but I think that's kind of when as we promulgate a policy, the policy, I believe, needs to speak to that, because I promise you we're going to get questions about it.
There's no doubt. It's my understanding that there's going to be some clarifications coming from the CDC. That usually inspires the California Department of Public Health, which comes down to county public health. But right now, what I explained to you is what the rules are as I know of them as of right now,
I understand.
subject to change.
Anything further? I just had one very minor correction to the meeting minutes of the regular meeting on June 16th. In the superintendent's report, it says that Superintendent Nicholas reported that MHCSD General Manager and Anush Najad have been working with the safety committee, and it talks about a four-way stop at Tradition and Mustang. And in fact, the four-way stop is at Tradition and Parco, which is a street that Cordes Elementary is on.
We will correct the record.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve the consent items for consideration.
Second.
Having a motion by Trustee Olson and seconded by Trustee Boulay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I would like to welcome the new hires for the 2021-2022 school year. April Bethards, self-contained classroom teacher. Steve Box, CTE engineering teacher. Paula Cruz de Ibarra, world language Spanish teacher. Alexandra Frazier, self-contained classroom teacher. Justice Futch, physical education teacher. Gilda Garcia, elementary K-8 custodian 1. Marky Hawkins, self-contained classroom teacher. Megan Hornbacker, English drama teacher. Mayur Khan, grounds maintenance worker. Christine Lee, Special Education Paraprofessional, Logan Loya. Coordinator of Alternative Programs, Stephen Mata. Self-contained classroom teacher, Baretti Meka, mathematics teacher. Elizabeth Mendez, special education teacher. Matthew Ojeda, physical education teacher. Gabriela Rodriguez, coordinator of instruction. Catherine Rodriguez, self-contained classroom teacher. Leighton Scott, English teacher. Amit Preet Sethi, special education teacher. Alejandra Villasenor, high school staff secretary. Emma Watson, arts teacher. Kayla Wise, self-contained classroom teacher. Kin Won, CTE computer science teacher. Vivian Wong, chemistry teacher, and I apologize to anyone who I mispronounced their name. Welcome.
Thank you and welcome. Moving on to item 8, district administrative reports. Superintendent Nicholas.
Yes, so I have a couple of things to cover here in the mandates that came along with the state budget, which was approved last Monday evening. There were a number of trailer bills included in the series of approvals by the state legislature is Assembly Bill 104. It mandates that high schools allow parents or guardians who request a grade change from a D to an F to a pass, no pass, that rolls back into the 2020-21 school year. The board last year approved actions consistent with AB 104 to occur for the first semester of 2021. I had too many 20s. 2020, 21. Maybe that makes it didn't sound right in my ear. The bill mandate, the 104 mandates that they follow the same process for semester 2. So there's a process folks will have to go to. For the pass, no pass, do not affect student eligibility like a letter grade. There were other things that we had already put in place. It recommends reexamining retention policy, which we already did last year. It recommends that students have accesses to courses they may have failed, which is already our practice. And there are opportunities for intervention, which are already part of the program. So we were pretty lined up very nicely with this, other than we had to add an additional ability for that semester. Second of all, we have I won't call it a rite of passage, but it's kind of like a rite of passage. We started a few years back honoring long-term employees. And when we were smaller, we used to be able to fit the entire staff with lots of room in the multi-use room at the high school. And then we were able to barely fit in this whole staff, and then it split up into 2 different buildings, one with our classified and one with our certificated, and now we don't fit anywhere. So in the world that we're living in, we're trying a different approach to this pin ceremony. It comes with a certificate. So we honor 5-year employees, 10-year employees, and 15-year plus employees. What we would like to do is invite the board members, if you're available, to come and be part of that. Obviously, we're spreading that out amongst a number of schools, so it won't be a perfect balance. But the date that's been scheduled is August 10th. There's a breakfast and pin ceremony, not simultaneous, from 8:30 to 9. The whole idea is if you can make it, great. We'd like you to be part of it. It's kind of fun. I have a 5-year pin. I'm getting close to my 10-year pin. I'm kind of excited about that. And so we wanted you to have that opportunity. And then finally, these are not official totals. These are gross totals, not net totals. Sorry. So today, the questionnaire that we sent out, which is the first step to moving towards our independent study LEO program. And this is a gross total, and I'm kind of like filtered down because there's like 2 or 3 filters we have to go through first. So at the gross level, approximately 86% of the respondents wanted in-person instruction for their children, and approximately 14% wanted the independent study model. Now, in the gross, we had 4,386 respondents, which is awesome. 3,780 for the in-person, and 606 for the independent study. And then we started reviewing the data, and we realized that with all the best of intentions and the best instructions we could do on that given day that we sent it out, we had a significant number of people that answered the questionnaire multiple times. So we've done the first scrubbing of the data, and we pulled out repeaters. So on a very informal level, I can say that 606 dropped down to approximately 400. Now, the second step, which is the formal step, is to take the gross number to the net number. Staff at the school sites on Friday, starting on Friday with a script, so it's a consistent message across every school site, are going to begin calling the respondents who wanted independent study to confirm that they want their child to attend. And we're going to do that until we get a net number. As soon as we have a net number, that triggers the staffing mechanism, because as things happen, you never get 24 kindergarten requests with one teacher. You end up getting 41, and that's not quite enough to fill up a second class. And so we're going to have to look at things such as, sometimes it's going to be the contracted maximum for a particular grade level, and we're going to have to do some combo classes probably for the independent study program. There's a lot more information coming in the presentation, but I wanted to get that to you. Once we've confirmed that people are absolutely sure that they want this independent study option, then additional communication will go out, and there'll be a process of filling out an enrollment so that we have all the data that we need, and we can start to build the information that we need to do it. The only twist in this is that some individuals said yes, they wanted independent study, and they did not provide their name of who they are, because the way it worked is if you said, yes, I want in-person, you were done with the questionnaire. If you said, I want independent study, then you were asked to fill out some information. So there's a chunk of people that we have no idea who they are. So I'm going to predict that we're going to make all the phone calls, get the net number. Then there's going to be an extra communication that goes out by the site. So if anybody feels like they got missed, they can come back in and we'll take care of them. So I think our net number will be 1, and then for the folks that may have not filled out the form right, we'll have to catch them over the next week. Any questions about that? So it's a little bit complicated, but that's how it ended up being.
So the survey method that was used doesn't keep track of people's responses attached to their email address?
Correct. So we use SurveyMonkey, and so unrelated to this questionnaire, there is some feeling in communities that the backtracking of checking people out through that vehicle is not met with trustworthiness in some communities and by some community members. So we try to set it up with the front-facing version of that.
Do you have any idea of how many, like what percentage of people responded to the survey versus maybe people that didn't respond at all?
So all I can tell you is there's approximately, in 2020, 2021, there were approximately 4,600 K-8 students. And they all don't come from different families, so you have multiple children families. So to have, and it's not 4,300 respondents, it's something less, but that is a significant percentage. I can't tell you what it is because the repeaters, we don't have an accurate number.
So you mentioned that Friday we will kind of get the net number. We'll start working on the net.
Correct. 400 phone calls have to go out.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Sure. So, and then you also mentioned that at some point you're going to start reaching out or have another email sent out to just reconfirm on the people who did not fill in their names.
Yeah, and so how we're going to approach that, subject to change because I'm not doing the specific work, is that we're going to put out a communication from the school site that if someone says, oh my gosh, I want the independent study, but my kid's in person, then we're going to give them the ability to be able to say, okay, here's who I contact, this is what I need to do, and then we'll fix it, help them fix it. It's the only way we can do it.
Sure. And do we have like a deadline date for them to, do we already have?
We
those
really,
thought processes?
when they start explaining the rules, I can tell you this, that the Assembly Bill, Senate Bill 130 gives parents a very broad control over this. And as a result, it can't be a deadline. We have a deadline because we have to staff it. But if parents can choose to pull out, there's some complications with that. So specific to this, we're going to reach out the best we can. And if in the first few days someone says what it is, then we'll work with them. I can also tell you that we're already getting communications of people changing their mind to not do independent study and to come back to in-person. So there is a vacillation factor here as well.
Thank you.
Mr. President, that is my presentation.
Thank you. Item B, Williams Quarterly Uniform Complaints, April through July 15th, 2021.
There are none.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got distracted because I wanted to make, I was getting confirmed I didn't say anything bad. So I got the thumbs up, and now I can tell you there are 0 reports.
Thank you.
You can't see my face under this mask, but it's very red right now.
Item C, District Maintenance and Operations Report. Mr. Legrand.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. So summer's really flown by for us. It's hard to believe school starts 3 weeks from tomorrow. I woke up in the middle of the night thinking that the other day, so it means I'm working too much, I guess. Summer cleaning continues at all of the sites. The custodians were given a hard deadline of Friday the 30th to have all the interior spaces done. All the schools except for one are on pace to do that, and a couple even are ahead of schedule, so that's good news. The week of the 2nd, they'll be focusing on the outside of the school, pressure washing windows, that kind of stuff. And then the following week is when the staff starts coming back. So it'll be here before we know it. In the warehouse, we've been buried up to our eyeballs with books and sanitizer and all kinds of stuff. So we are making progress on the books. I was happy to walk out the warehouse saying I actually saw part of the floor for the first time in a couple of weeks, so that's good. It's a pretty slow process with our box truck. We can only do a couple pallets at a time, and we're doing the best we can, getting that stuff out to the school sites. Last week, we had all of our fire hoods inspected and all of our fire extinguishers serviced, so we're good to go for this coming year. On the 22nd, I met with a potential vendor, alarm vendor. I mentioned before that we're not totally satisfied with our current vendor. It's going to be more difficult than I thought to switch vendors, but we still want to head down that path and try and do it. I think it's the best thing for the district in the long term. Solar update. So we've had many meetings since the last board meeting, almost weekly. We did site walks on the 9th to look at all the ADA upgrades we have to do in the parking lot. Most of it's just painting, striping, and some truncated domes, nothing too major. And then on Friday, we met on the 9th, also that day, we met with Gloria to work out some, so I saw some billing issues and some other issues, so she was very helpful with that. And then on the 21st of June, the company was here and put the marquee up at Cuesta. If you guys haven't been by there, check it out. Looks really good on the building. Upcoming items, I have a meeting on Monday at the high school with the VP and his team, talk about facilities issues they have, facilities needs. And then next week, we're going to be refinishing the gym floors, which is always, in both gyms, which is always a huge project. Staff started prepping the floor, and by the today, we've already started prepping the main gym, and then we'll slide over to the small gym. Staffing update, we interviewed on July 7th for the 2 evening positions at the high school. We made 2 offers of employment, both accepted. One of them lady's already started, and the other candidate's going to start in the first part of August. We interviewed for the district courier position and made an offer of employment. She accepted. She's right now scheduled to come in around the 12th. We're trying to bring her in a little bit early to help out getting ready for school. Our new grounds maintenance person started on the 1st of July. She's been here 2-3 weeks, and he's working out really well so far. We still have an evening position opening at Bethany, and then we have a lead custodian evening position at the high school to fill. And the lead custodian got posted today, so we'll interview ASAP for that one. And that's all the info I have. Any questions?
Questions or comments by the board?
What is that thing that you mentioned about the Questa thing? What's the name of the?
What's the question?
The Questa that you installed? Is it the
Marquee?
marquee?
Oh, Marky.
Electric sign.
The
You
marquee?
see it?
Is that the one? The marquee?
Yeah, it's right above where the band room is, up in the corner.
It looks great.
Looks great.
Yeah, I live in
Yeah.
Cuesta and I do my walking around the Cuesta Park. It just catches my attention all the time. And the first time I saw it, I was so excited to see the marquee. So great job on that.
Principal Sharp, she did all the work on that. I just coordinated electrical and the installation, so credit goes to her and her staff.
Awesome. Great job. Thank you.
Could I just ask, have the bass speakers been installed in the high school gym? And if so, who has heard it, the sound and,
The speakers?
yes, the bass?
I don't know. I don't know. It's not my thing.
Oh, you
I
don't,
think Sean's doing that one. I don't know.
I can answer that.
Lord knows.
The speakers are in. We're still working on the sound for the microphones. There was an issue with sound, but everything's in. So
exciting.
The intention is that still that Mr. Harrison and I are going to go play some loud music soon.
I apologize, Mr. Legrand. I had a couple of questions. I'm sorry. And if you, I was a couple of times I was writing notes.
Thor makes me look really short, so I try not to stand too close to him. I try to keep space.
I feel the same way. I think everyone feels the same way. The nets at the high school, have those been installed?
No.
Okay. And then,
The baseball nets?
yeah,
No.
and the grounds. How is that the relationship with the groundskeepers?
I think the relationship is better. We had a meeting, a Zoom meeting last month, something like that. Yeah. 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. I think it's getting better. We still have a ton of irrigation issues. I just sent off 7 repair proposals today before I come over to the meeting. Stuff continuously breaks. It's weekly. It's very frustrating. I think that the grounds are looking better. If you look around, we saw some issues. Softball field had an issue at the high school, and Cordis was right for a little bit, but I think we're making progress. Would you agree? Yeah. I think things are getting better. So
Well, thanks for managing
it is.
that. I know it's
My relationship is getting better. They're doing a better job getting the paperwork I need from my end to get the work orders in and that kind of stuff. So that has improved. Could I basically stop approving stuff over my cell phone because they weren't giving me the paperwork? So I said, if you don't send me paperwork, I'm not approving anything. So that's gotten better.
Can I ask something regarding the irrigation? Is it normal for a school district to have so many repairs for irrigation? Is it our equipment? Is it tree roots that are messing it up? Because that happens at my house.
Why is
But,
it breaking?
Is it a variety of things?
It's people tell me it's the water here. The valves are seizing up, and we're also losing. On a side note, we're also losing a lot of water heaters that are rusting out, and the schools are pretty new for that to happen. So maybe something with the water. I'm not sure. And then we've been told about the heaving ground and the moving of the grounds, breaking the lateral lines in between the sprinklers. So it could be a combination of both.
Okay, thank you.
But it's a ton of work to keep up on it. It's a pain, but we're doing the best we can. Good.
Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Legrand.
Moving on to item 9, action items. Item A, consider approval of the 2021-2022 consolidated application for funding. Staff report?
Yes, this is the notorious Con App, and it is the formal explanation and report on how the district utilizes title funding. Anytime you see funding associated with the word title, it's federal funds. And this is a formal process that we do annually.
Questions or comments by the board?
Move to approve this 2021-22 consolidated application for funding.
Second.
On a motion by Trustee Olson and seconded by Trustee Boulay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, consider approval of safe return to in-person instruction and continuity plan. Staff report?
Yes, so this is associated with ESSER $3. That's the third round of funds that are coming in to support COVID and instructional learning loss mitigation. This is a have to in order to get the money, and we recommend approval.
Questions or comments by the board? I'll entertain a motion.
Moved.
Move to approve the safe return to in-person instruction and continuity plan.
Second.
A motion by trustee Boulay and seconded by trustee Daniel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item C, consider approval of contract for $80,500 with Cryo Autism Therapy LLC for intensive individual services for the 2021-22 school year. Staff report?
Yes, this is to support the needs of a single IEP and one student. However, this service, if we were to have an additional need for other students, this would be able to cover that to some degree.
Questions or comments by the board?
Move to approve contract for $80,500 with Cryo Autism Therapy LLC for intensive individual services for the 2021-2022 school year.
Second.
On a motion by trustee Clements and seconded by trustee Olson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item D. Consider approval of second reading of adoption and update of board policies and administrative regulations. Staff report?
Yes, this completes the latest round of policy approval. It's the second reading, and we want to thank trustee Clements and Olson for their future service and on the policy committee to continue this wonderful process of policy.
With my thanks, sincere thanks to district staff for all the work. This is an ongoing but thoroughly rewarding and interesting process that other board members really would love to be a part of. I will move to approve the second reading and adoption of updated board policies and administrative regulations.
Second.
And I would just like to thank district staff and the committee for all the work they put into updating these board policies. And with a motion by trustee Clements and seconded by trustee Daniel, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item E, consider approval of contract with Guru for navigated learning platform for the 2021-2022 school year. Total cost $150,000. Staff report?
Yeah, I'm going to have Assistant Superintendent Sherburne come up and give a presentation, but I just want to remind the board at the last board meeting, we kind of set the stage for this presentation. This has been a project we've been working on for a number of years, and it's ready to be taken to the next level. And we'll turn it over to Heather Sherburne.
Good evening, President Pombo, Dr. Nicholas, trustees. It is my pleasure to be here this evening to talk to you about Guru and what we've been doing. We have had a partnership with Guru now for roughly 8 years, and we have been a grassroots co-developer of them with a really forward-thinking, innovative process. So I'm going to share a little bit about that tonight. First, I'll let you know that Guru is a nonprofit. It has a mission that education is a human right. They seek to make learning available to everyone, anywhere in the world, at any time. And they've been on this journey for over 10 years now. The founder, Prasad Ram, or we call him Pram, was the lead developer of a little thing you might know called Google Maps. And so he's founded Guru to begin building Google Maps for learning as a means to fulfill his mission of education being a human right. He does this work with partnering with all of these different universities that you see up here, several school districts, a handful of school districts that are founding partners, such as Lammersville, And to date, they have published 44 articles in 5 areas that you see listed there. And you can see that there are many prestigious universities who are working with Prasad Ram and Guru. So I'm navigating 2 things at once, excuse me. So to date, we have been a part of the beginning of Guru and their process with navigated learning. And such as that, they're working at how do you take data about what a student knows and can do and map it, if you look at where it says personal pathways up there, and map it to where you want them to be, and help, using artificial intelligence, provide them with resources and choices to get them there in an efficient, effective manner, which is different and personalized for each individualized learner. And to do that, you have to start with the graphic you see on the other side that says locating the learner. And locating the learner is the most complicated part of it, taking in data and figuring out what a student knows in many different ways and how they best learn. Then they also have the Navigator suite of web products. They've created some content based on open education resources and built that into a platform where the data that we have, in our case as a district, we use map testing as a starting point for the data of what our children know. We feed that into Guru, and it says, okay, this is what a child knows in math, and goes forward with helping look at opportunities with open education resources that could be provided to students on their individualized pathway to help them with fulfilling gaps or moving forward. So the real simplified version of it, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into that. When we do this, we've been working on it, as I said, for multiple years. We roll this out in a really controlled, thoughtful manner. We have started with 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and only in the area of math, and only at 2 school sites when we were starting, because it was in its infancy of development. It was really just a brain thought. And he was starting to build, and the engineers were building all of the platform and putting it together and starting to code the content to different competencies, and how do we help the computer programs algorithmically map that to students. So we, at Lammersville and Altamont Elementary, we had teachers who were part of this development. They had weekly meetings to give feedback. They gave feedback by email. They went to bi-weekly meetings and gave feedback. And then we had quarterly meetings where we would sit and we would talk. And teachers would say, this stunk. This was good. We like this. We wish we had this report. Kids find this kind of content from the open ed resources boring. They like this other content better. And all of that feedback was taken and used to continue to develop the product. As of last year, the product was to a point where we expanded the usage now to all of our 6th, 7th, and 8th grades in the area of math. We had really great usage, and I'll show you a little bit later what our outcomes were with students in that area. At the same time, Guru is also developing some science content, which we allowed teachers, we offered. It happens to align with the open ed resource that we use for our adopted curriculum Scale. Out of Stanford University. And so we said, it's in its infancy. If you'd like to use it, it's aligned. And guess what? We're all teaching with distance learning. So this is one way that it's easier to get your curriculum out there to your students. If you'd like to try it, you can. And again, we trained them, we walked them through it. We didn't mandate anybody did it. We asked for their feedback. We gave a lot of feedback. The curriculum team in my office and myself are in constant communication back and forth, really co-developing by us giving feedback and telling what our needs are to pull this all together. So we had a fair number of teachers using it in the science area as well. And they have since at Guru finished the 7th and 8th grade science curriculum mapping. So we will allow our 7th and 8th grade science teachers to take advantage of that this year as well if they'd like. So that gives you a start of where we're at. So now they're taking it to the next level. They're ready to, they said, we have the basic premise here. We're ready to really move into what we're doing with these NLab schools and kick it up a notch and say, now we want to have visionary school districts like Lammersville Unified who continue to co-work with Guru to develop open and free Guru Navigator, practice it to achieve learning equity and excellence, and then share it with the world, essentially. And they'll do that over a big, broad stage. This is an international endeavor. So if you look at it, there are 7 million learners participating in Guru right now, over 60 institutions, high quality engineers working on the product. It's in US schools, India schools, South Africa schools, being used at the US Department of Defense. It's a really unique product. So we're going to show a video of where we're going and what we're doing. Because right now, I told you that our source of data is our map testing. In order to really personalize and individualize the pathway, that's all right. In order to really do that, we need to start aggregating data from multiple sources and all of the high quality content that we have so that we can really inform the platform and let it do its work and support our teachers in doing their work.
Establishing equity and excellence in learning demands systemic change that is complex because many requirements must be met. It needs to be designed for equity, enable lifelong learning at scale, uphold privacy and keep data secure, provide total choice as to why, what, where, and how to learn. It should be interoperable, include all types of learning activities, work in low technology environments, and continually improve. In trying to meet this challenge of complexity, learning providers use many educational tools, from platforms like iStation, Newsella, and Zern, to standardized tests, team projects, after-school programs, and so many more. However, data from these only show pieces of the whole learner. Without aggregating data from the many tools and programs, learning providers cannot understand the whole person. And without this complete understanding, it becomes very difficult to personalize instruction for each learner, provide real-time actionable insights to all other stakeholders, and enable systemic change in learning. To solve this challenge, a group of NLab founding school districts, Valverde, Lammersville, Gold, and LPS, together with Guru, have spent the past several years developing the navigated learning approach and co-created the Guru Navigator, a set of free and open applications for students, teachers, principals, parents, curriculum designers, and school administrators, all leveraging the navigated learning approach. And then we open sourced it to make it available to all other school districts in the US and around the world. What does it mean to be an NLab school? When joining NLabs, your school becomes a pioneer in the co-creation of the navigated learning approach. First, you are empowered to aggregate your data. Using an interoperability framework, your tool providers can now share the data that your learners generate on their tools into a data lake that you own. Second, you'll more fully understand each learner's location in terms of their knowledge, mindset, and community engagement. Your learner's identity will now be updated in real time as data from learning activities flows into your data lake, providing you an increasingly comprehensive understanding of each learner's gaps, needs, and proficiency. Third, you are empowered to leverage your data to meet your learning goals. Through Guru Navigator for Learners, you'll be able to leverage your data to provide highly personalized pathways of open resources to your students. And through the Navigator for Teachers and Leaders tools, you'll be able to provide real-time actionable insights to all other stakeholders. NLab schools are at the leading edge of this pioneering innovation and are set to be the exemplar implementers that will be showcased as navigated learning goes global. Use Guru Navigator district-wide, innovate and lead its evolution. Showcase your success on the global stage. As an NLab school, administrators can use real-time insights to achieve their school accountability plans. Teachers can increase their productivity by up to 20%. Leaders can aggregate data across activities, knowing that their data adheres to local privacy and global data security norms. Students get personalized pathways to accelerate learning by up to 2x. And schools get dedicated engineers to support and help make the tools even better. This is NLabs, Learning Equity and Excellence.
All right. So at present, we are, they're just in the beginning stages of building the data lakes, working with different vendors, like we work with iRead, ST Math, Learning A to Z, Newsela, many other content providers that are awesome content providers, but all of that data lives within their own platform. We're working now to bring all of that data together that will all be aggregated within this data lake and then feed the Navigator platform to again ultimately in the future, send the learner back over to Newsela or iRead or an open ed resource that is most appropriate for the journey that that student is on. So it is truly something that is not being done anywhere at all and completely innovative and world-changing, very much similar to going from paper maps to Google Maps. That's exactly what we are endeavoring to do in partnership with Guru right now. So let's look at where we're at though so far and what we've been doing, because as I said, we are not there yet. That is where we are endeavoring to go. But we do have a Guru mission control that we have been using that's developed already. There are data points and dashboards available at the district level, the school level, and the individual student level. So we're going to look at some of those and kind of dig down. And I apologize that it's a little small. I had to do screenshots off of it. It just wasn't the most ideal way to get you into it. But this is a district level data dashboard. You can see that in the right corner, I gotta find the one that's the arrow button. There it is. Okay, so you can see right here, this is daily, weekly. And so this is toggled onto the weekly view right now. This is the number of competencies that students have learned across the district during that week. For the month of April, you can see this is the month that we're on. I just picked any month. We had almost 9,000 competencies learned by students. And again, this is just students in grades 6th, 7th, and 8th, just in math. They had an average score of nearly 80% proficiency on what they learned and accomplished, and they spent an average time of 22 minutes and 22 seconds. Down this side, you can see all of the individual schools, and you can see what their competencies were for this same time frame of April. So then I can click into the next slide, and it digs down. What I did is I chose Lammersville's Virtual Learning Academy here. And I said, okay, so what's the picture look like for April there? This is their graph of each week. Again, I could change that toggle over to daily if I wanted. And now instead of seeing schools over here, I see teachers over here and their classes. I still see the same data about their proficiency and how many competencies they have learned and how much time they spent. Now we're taking it down to the student level, which is why you see the big black box here, because this is our real data. So I have covered up student names here, but that is what is listed underneath here. And this is how many competencies individual students in this one teacher's class. This map shows all of the students and what they where they are at in relationship to the learning goals for that grade level for that month of April. Similar information there. But let's dig a little bit deeper now. So now I'm at an individual student. For this individual student, now the report has changed. This is the math area strand. Over here you can see we have English language arts, science, and social studies, which we are not participating in with Guru. So if I look at that student, this is the total number of competencies for this month. This is the total number of competencies, and you can't read it, but I remember it's 510 competencies that she has learned for the year, this student. And I can click into this blue area of math on all of these competencies and then dig in even further to find out what is going on with that student. So now I'm getting to the report for a student of what that student knows. So what this gray shadow is, these are all the competencies that have been mapped out for the area of math at that grade level for, not at that grade level, sorry, around that grade range for the area of math. This green line is the high line. The high line is what you would want to have every child reach if they mastered all of the competencies for the grade level, reach or exceed. This blue is what the child knows right now. And this is actually a real student in Lammersville Unified, and this is back in September. So it's not shocking to see that they haven't mastered much yet at this point in time. So this is what their knowledge is. This just gives me a little more detail. If I'm a teacher, they can click in and learn about the different areas as it relates to standards and skill sections within math. So if I drill down a little bit farther into that, though, now I'm looking at the month of May. And you can see that this child's skyline, that's the blue areas, the skyline with the white outline, all of the dark blue is everything that has been mastered by May. And this is only a partial view of the dashboard for them. And then you can see the little areas of the highline that have not yet been met. And you can see where there are things they have not even begun to work on. If I go into it another level, I can now take any one of these rows and I expand it out. What I expanded out is area 8 in the different strands of competencies as they've done it. And I've said, okay, these dark blue ones are mastered, the light blue ones are in progress. And over here, I can, as a teacher, again, look at it and find more information about what are the specific skills and competencies that that student is struggling with and working on or hasn't yet addressed. If I drill down even further into one of those competency areas, I can see this is the last activity that they worked on to show mastery in that area of topic 8.4. They had an 80% mastery, and they last accessed it on April 15th. So the teacher has a lot more information about what that child did to demonstrate mastery of that competency. The teacher has a similar dashboard with some tools that only teachers would use. This is the teacher view of their classroom. Each one of these dots is one of their students, and you can see the grade level strand. And so you can see some students are below grade level. Most of the students are right at or near grade level. And then they can go in and drill down farther and look at the learning. This is a view of every child's skyline in their classroom. So they can look for similarities, differences, where they need to go. They can click into an individual student and do much of the same things that I demonstrated for you off of the district dashboard from the prior slides. The teacher also can go in and they can do live classroom activities with the students that are interactive and teacher-led. The teacher can develop their own things that they are working on. If they want to do an exit ticket in the classroom, the kids go in and live put in their answers. The students that have mastered it, the teacher automatically sees the scores right then and there, and then it records onto their skyline if they've mastered that competency, and it gives the teacher the feedback who they need to go and continue to help. So what are the results with the work we've done? And there are many other things that you can do within the platform that kind of gives you the overview of how that data is really informative about what students know and can do and the progress that they've made. In Lammersville Unified, over 61,000 competencies were gained in the 2021 school year, with an average score of 81% proficiency for mastery on the standards. The May month was over 10,000 competencies just in the month of May. So we took map testing. We said, well, we want to see what we do map testing anyways, but let's look at it and compare. So in our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, during a pandemic, we had growth in the area of math for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And I don't know about you, but 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math is pretty challenging. So 3.4% growth, 1.8% growth, and in 8th grade, 6.3% growth. None of our other grade levels had growth. So while I can't say that it's directly causal, it is highly corollary that the 3 grade levels where we were using Guru are also the only grade levels where we had this type of gains. So we feel really positive about the direction that we're heading and how this is working. So, as you saw in the video, the goal is to innovate and move beyond, to create that data lake, to pull and create dashboards that are more powerful and rich, including that the dashboards would be informing district staff on their LCAP goal progress and directly aligning to that. They would develop a parent app tool. They're going to expand the analytics that are available within there. there's the creation and the maintaining and the linking of all of the vendors into the data lake. They're going to continue to expand their open ed resource content and to service other grade levels and expand down. Also moving into language arts more fully and into history, social studies, and finishing out more of science. They want to start capturing data that captures the whole entire learner so that when a student is on the web and they're learning from another resource, they can see how long they persevere on it. They can see what their interests are. They can determine their grit. Much the same way that we have other products that we're using that tell us, oh, you're interested in baby wipes? Let me show you 15 ads on baby wipes. And we're not going to sell something to the kids, but they have algorithms that they're able to determine what is really helpful and useful to a student that can help inform how we provide them the best instruction. They'll create reports directly in consultation in response to what Lammersville Unified would like and need. They're going to create a parent dashboard and a parent app so that parents would have access to view into how their students are progressing. So there are a lot of really big goals. And then all of that would lead to, again, Lammersville Unified being one of this very small group of schools that are co-developing this product with them in a very controlled and systematic way with feedback at all times. And then we would participate in conferences and be showcased and helping to spread the word of how this truly world-changing product can really make a change in the way we go about educating students. And it's not about replacing teachers. It's about using technology to the best of its ability to free teachers to do the work that only teachers can do. So it's getting the best out of both. That's why Guru will talk about increasing teacher efficacy and efficiency, because teachers are now able to focus their time and energy where they need to most do it because a computer can't. Thank you. You have any questions?
I do have some questions. Some of them I might just ask again for the record, just so the public could also know the answers. But you just said at the end of your presentation, which I loved, that this doesn't replace teachers, because I think it's a natural fear that some people have with technology, parents and teachers even, that these tools that we use are designed to replace them. And with Guru, I could see people assuming that, given that they do guide students to other online sources to study from. But the vision that you see for Lammersville, how do you see that teachers will be dealing with students when they need to help them? Will they just be giving them these other online activities and then monitoring that, or do you see them doing small group work with a set group of students in the same boat? Or
yes and yes. So presently, the way it works is that teachers continue to teach our adopted content in the math area. Then they work with small groups of students based on what they know from happened in that lesson that they were teaching live, what they know from other data sources like their benchmark exams that they've given, and by looking at the Guru dashboard and saying, oh, I have a group of students who need to know X, Y, or Z, and I'm going to pull them. What are other students doing? Well, they might be doing their independent work from their lesson that was taught live, but they're also doing Guru as a part of it and spending some time, several times a week, in order to increase their proficiency on their personal pathway. And then teachers have to look at that and make those judgments. So they might be, obviously students are learning individually. They might pull a student aside and work with them one-on-one because it'll alert them when a student is really struggling. And they might be pulling small groups based on that. It's really up to the teacher to make those decisions. Guru provides them with the information to make the decisions. Guru is only going to be a supplemental resource. It's not a core content provider. It will go in, it will help reinforce and secure gaps to help a learner get where they need to be.
Okay, thank you. And just a follow-up, that I saw on the one slide about the teacher, you can see classroom data by classroom on their competencies versus the whole school versus the whole district. What is the district going to be using those classroom competency information for? Will it be only just to understand where we are and if our curriculum's working the way we want, or are teachers going to be assessed in any way with based on the amount of competencies their students learn, or is that?
Are you asking if is it going to be used as an evaluation
Yes,
tool?
yes.
It's absolutely not used as an evaluation tool at all. This is only a learning tool for students. We do monitor that it is being used
Okay.
within the classroom.
Okay, so that's the only,
But that is what the expectation is, just like any of our content that we adopt and we implement. We expect that that content is used appropriately within the classroom context. The teacher's expectation would be that they're looking at it. What are we looking at? We're looking at how our learners are doing at this big 30,000-foot view, and we're also taking that in conjunction to other feedback, our district benchmark exams, teacher reports, teachers help refine our common assessments. All of those are sources of gathering, and Guru is one source.
okay, great. And I really liked when you mentioned how it shows mastery. Just a quick comment, and then I'll be finished, because I know the high school has done a really great job with that. I feel like our students, that whole mastery idea and concept, I like to see how it's trickling down, and Guru is a great way to help us provide our students, that kind of thinking in their education, that have I mastered this concept? What do I need to do to get it? Because I reading the vision of Guru, I really do think I can't really say the great equalizer, but it really does create more opportunity to really give every student what they need when I can, at its build out. I can see that happening, and I think that's great, because anything that could make lives easier for the teachers is wonderful, and also for the students, because I know there's a lot of students in our district that just get by and they do fine. They're smart, but they could do better, and I think this will help them do better. So I would, I could ask lots of questions because it's very fascinating. I'd love to know how you became partners with Guru, because I only saw 4 districts mentioned. So that seems like kind of.
So I have a mentor from a past experience who calls me every once in a while, and he goes, I think it was my first year here, he goes, hey, you got to check out this Guru thing. And it started with one phone call from a person who used to be my boss back in a couple of school districts I worked in. And I called Pram, and we met in Palo Alto at their old laboratory, we'll call it. And it was immediately clear to me that, wow, if this is what is, if we can do this, this is great. But it's taken a lot of time. And then we were missing one big thing. I want to say a big monolithic thing, and I think the best way to describe it is we needed Sherburne Nation become part of our district, because obviously as we've grown, my ability to be directly involved in stuff like that, like I could when we were 2,600 students, is different. And she's taken it and really the things that make her the Sherburnator are the things that they needed from us, and so that partnership has just gotten better. I will say one quick funny story. I was down, they moved over to the Oracle Labs over in Redwood City, and here I am, a 50-year-old guy who, technology in my day was a copy machine and an overhead projector, and I'm sitting in this room with all of these coders who graduated from Princeton and Cal and all these other great colleges, and so I'm sitting there thinking like, well, I was a English teacher and a basketball coach, and so I just started asking them questions, and the culture that they've created at Guru for the people that work there are kind of the culture we're trying to create here, innovative, creative, personable people who have an expertise in a particular area, and they all work towards a common good. So just those experiences of working with them over the years, it's really grown. But in terms of the work that Sherburne's done with them is really kind of exponential now, and it's got momentum, and now we're in the teacher we're using and the feedback loop, and now we're in to take it to the next level. So that's really a brief story. One phone call.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I do appreciate you answering a lot of the questions that I had before the meeting that Assistant Superintendent Sherburne answered in the presentation, because you could have just said, wait for the presentation, but I appreciate getting those answers. And just for the record, I just want to really thank the fact that, Guru respects the student data and that we own the data. I think that's important for people to realize, because it is a lot of data and information about our kids. And so I think it's just important to make sure that people hear that it's our data.
It's all the top-notch security practices are in place, and it's world-class leading what's being developed. And what we have been doing right now is still its infancy, but it's come a long way, and it's a really exciting journey.
Is there an end date, like they have in mind of when this will be fully, or is it just too hard?
Well, we'll say at this point in time, they're thinking that it will be, the parts that I've talked about right now will be exponentially fulfilled within a 3-year time frame. We think we're right at the apex of making this huge leap. All of that core infrastructure, figuring out how to map competencies, how to get the feedback, how to put the platform together, yada, yada, yada. That basic structure has now all been developed. The hard work of bringing in the rest of the world in terms of vendors, the hard work of customizing and tweaking the dashboard, some of that is more doable, more seeable, more tangible than that first original vision quest, which took quite a while to get here. Now we can just start building. Kind of like DSA for a school. 4 years.
Yeah, and that's the thing you learn is all great plans in education take a lot longer. I mean, it seems like, well, if you just do A, B, and C, it's all done. But A, B, and C is always a journey. And yeah, so we're excited about this.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. First of all, thank you for the presentation. I looked at the agenda item, I looked at the information that was in our board packet, and I couldn't grasp the concept of what this was supposed to do. And it was talking about different curriculum, and so I thought it was sort of building curriculum. But after some questions from Dr. Nicholas in the presentation, realized it's just pulling curriculum from different resources and sort of aggregating it all in one place, and then building analytics on that. So I think it was helpful. I was also hopeful, since we are one of the founding schools, that we would be getting royalties for any future schools that would buy into the contract, but realized it's a nonprofit company. So, but that would have been really nice. Mm-hmm. And then Stephanie touched on another question I had in terms of a timeline. It sounds like the math portion is fully on board for 6 through 8. But some of the other things that I was listening through the presentation was that we're getting to ELA, we're getting to science, we're going to expand. Do we have a timeline for any of those specifics in terms of when we can start implementing some of those?
Well, it's a complicated answer. What I'll share is that there are other things that are developed still. Doesn't mean it's necessarily the right time and the best thing for us to roll out in that controlled, slow, methodical rollout, so that our teachers have what they need and our students have what they need in the right timing with everything that's going on. So that's why we have really controlled that we're only doing middle school math at this point in time. Then we said, okay, scale for science is already aligned to what we are already doing in a completely Herculean task of a year during a pandemic. We still released and said, okay, go ahead and try something new if you're up for the challenge. We think it could help you. And we had people who had taken advantage of that. But we need to be really thoughtful and methodical about saying, okay, now we're ready to go ahead and say we can start pulling this in. What we would like to do is, and on the back end we will be doing, should we move forward, is that we'll be pulling in like ST Math, which is in use right now and was in use prior to this. We'll be pulling that data in and looking at it and seeing on the back end where all of those competencies fall for students. That will help us as a district make the right decisions about when we start moving that forward, and then saying, okay, now everybody will access their other supplemental content providers through the Guru platform instead. So it's really about us making the right decisions and the right steps at the right time. And yes, there are some other content areas. They expect to develop more fully ELA this year. They expect to continue to start fleshing out more of science. They are most fully developed in math across multiple grade levels.
And then one more question in terms of teaching or helping the teachers use the system. Is that a complicated thing? Does it take several hours of professional development?
So let me speak in the big picture, because it's another thing I think we're really proud of in this district. The curriculum department isn't the book people, it's the instructional support people. We have an extraordinary team of coordinators, obviously an extraordinary leader here. It would be, people could probably pay money to watch Heather and I map out how we're going to roll something out because of the prudency factor and the enthusiasm factor, and we have to reel it all in. But in terms of the support of teachers, Heather's developed a team and a system to meet the needs of both, right? We're thrilled about doing something, and we're going to go prudently, because the worst thing you can do to kill a good plan is to go too fast, too hard, and not clear enough.
So typically we'll do a short session, might be 45 minutes to an hour long. We'll teach them an explicit point of whatever it is. Should it be at the beginning? It's logging in. What does the basic dashboard look like? How do your students log in? After that, you can kind of plug and play for a little while. Then we come back in a few weeks and we have another session after, we'll probably make it question and answer time. So now we get questions and answers. Then the next time we come in and we say, okay, what if I want to do a classroom activity? How can I do that? What if I want to make my own test? How do I do that? And in between, we'll have drop-in question and answer office hours. We were doing web meetings for that before the pandemic. So that's kind of how it looks. It's drips along the way with opportunities for support. Katrina is all things guru in terms of being the coordinator in my office that everybody talks with, because she works with the middle school teachers anyways, primarily.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. They also email Guru directly with their feedback and questions.
I think the pinnacle event is any technological glitches I fix.
Further questions or comments by the board?
Yeah, Mr. President. So I apologize in that I, too, misunderstood. Thank you for the presentation. It's kind of an aha moment for me. Reading what was provided in the packet, it was a swing and a miss for me. I clearly did not understand.
It's a complicated topic, so either that or I'm a really poor writer.
It's the white paper.
No, I think it was, I think there was just information. I don't know, maybe it was, I'm a visual person and it was verbiage on paper. But so eventually this was started by the gentleman who was the driving force behind Google Maps. Mm-hmm. And he believes that education is a human right. Mm-hmm. And this is fantastic. I mean, going through your presentation, it sounded fantastic. Eventually, the goal is for this to be open source, meaning free to all. And we are being asked to spend $150,000, potentially almost $500,000, for something that will eventually be, ideally, free to all. Mm-hmm. And what we get for that is we're going to be, hold on, I have the thing here, is LUSD will be designated as the founding district of NLabs.
As a founding district of?
It says the.
Sorry.
In the agreement. So there are other districts that are participating as well?
The 4 districts that were mentioned in the video that are participating.
And they've signed.
And I know they are looking to try and get a couple more districts. Beyond that detail, I would have to defer to Guru.
So I'm looking at this going, that's almost $500,000 for bragging rights.
Not really.
Now, let me interject. Okay, first of all, we've been basically getting all the services for free for 7 or 8 years now. What we're getting is we would want to do this whether that open source thing happened or not, is we want to develop our own analytics program. We've been trying to do it ourselves for a number of years. This doesn't exist. So one of the directions the board has given me over the years is put us on the map, right? That we did it regionally, we've done it in the state, we're sort of doing it in the nation. This is a way to put us on a map. So that's a nice reward on the side, like a cherry on the top. The real core issue here is we want to be able to have access to all these engineers, all of these other companies who can bring the analytics and all of the best operating procedures and access to this, all these other sources, and bring it all in so that we can do what we wanted to do with MAP. The original analytics program was MAP. MAPS gave you a score, and then it had this thing called Descartes, where it broke down what they knew, what they didn't know, or what they'd learned, what they're in the process of learning, what they didn't know. But really what it was a list. And what we've been able to get out of that is we've been able to have a set of data that goes along with the kids that we can track as kind of a goal-setting operation. This is giving teachers and kids and parents an analytics thing. And so the example I gave with Lisa, or Trustee Boulay, is it's what's changed in baseball. You have the old coaching method of the traditional model, the traditional things, the gut instinct manager and all that. And then you have the new age Giants and the new age Dodgers and the new age where the analytics are saying these situations can be best handled if you have these players in, you use these strategies, this defensive setup. And so we've been trying to get here since I got here. The best way I would be recommending that we do this without the open source thing. Because if we can get to this level, then there's not a kid we can miss. There is no crack. That landscape, that skyline says all we have to do is look at all this different compilation of data and say these are the kids that we're slipping on. We still have about 20-25% of our kids, in spite of all the great things we do, that we're not moving.
Okay, so we're saying, look, and I agree that that's the direction that we have asked you to go, which is build a tool that essentially frees teachers up to teach, rather than, I got to do all this analysis, and then I got to go find how to respond to the analysis, and then I got to go find how to teach how I respond to the analysis. And so that is what this is the vehicle that we are using to get there.
Correct.
And that's why we're spending $150,000.
Correct. And if you extrapolate, it's about $21,000 a school site for the year, times 3 years. We have a lot of programs we spend for 20 grand.
Thank you.
But,
I realize I'm like oversimplifying it in sitting here.
I get it. It's a lot of money, and it's like, well, if all we're doing is getting a badge, that's a lot of money, right? The idea is, and all I can explain to you is, I was a teacher. It was a big deal to go to the copy machine, and you copy your stuff off, and then you pass it out to the kids. Now, I stood for 45 minutes at a copy machine, being excited about it, and then I spent another X amount of time. All the time the teachers spend on the organizational set. Imagine if they were just spending thinking, like, what do these kids need? Oh, I got what they need. Oh, and by the way, I can do it here. And that's why they said the 20% of their time back. I don't know if that's going to be what it ends up, but that's a nice aspirational goal.
Even 15
Absolutely.
is huge.
And the 20%,
Thank you for the
20%
explanation, Dr. Nicholas.
If I could see if I have my brain wrapped around this, if I understood Dr. Nicholas correctly, what he's saying is it would be money well spent if we were the only ones benefiting from it. Right. But the fact that the whole world will benefit shouldn't detract from our desire to move forward with it.
Correct.
If I can add to that and clarify, they have done research that shows the 20% in other areas, not on our district, for getting that time back. And the other thing that we're getting is, while other users will be using the product for free, that doesn't, they're not having it built to their specifications, which we are. They have to use whatever's available to them, which will probably be great because we'll be a part of it, right? But we're having it built to our specifications. And we're also paying in part to have all of those other premium resources that we have, like Newsella, iRead, ST Math, Discovery Education, all of the other resources that you've pulled into that data lake. And so pulling that in and the integrations that are involved and the engineering that's involved, and then maintaining, making it secure, and then forcing and pushing that back out so that we're getting data from all of those other sources and not just from the open ed resources is something that we are getting that other free users wouldn't be getting.
I understand. essentially all of those other sources that we already use are going to be the first ones in the pipeline to be integrated because we're helping to steer the ship.
But only our students will have access to our resources.
No, I'm just saying, like, so there's
Right.
probably a
We're first
million
in line.
other sources out there, but the ones that Lammersville uses are going to be the first ones where the engineers say, how do I communicate with that source? Because we are one of the founding districts.
Correct.
Okay.
I have a question. So they were great questions from my peers, so I have a very small question about the innovation and the deadline. Like the slide where you showed for Innovate, we have a list of things that they're going to develop, and you did let us know that it's going to be developed over a period of 3 years, which is great. Now, do we have a deadline as to, or do we know a list of things that they are going to focus on for the next year? Because 3 years is a good long time, but we have to take, a step-by-step process. So do we have things lined up for the next year? Do we have deadlines?
Yeah, they do have a roadmap with their development plan for 21-22 school year. I can't even keep track of what year we're in now. For what they plan to develop during this current year. And I read off a list of most of it, but like the parent app and the parent dashboard is a big part of that. The LCAP goal alignment is a big part of that. The whole data lake creation and those connections is a deliverable this year. And there are quite a few others I just can't recall off of the top of my head, but those are like the nut of it.
Okay, so we do have a list and we have it on note. Great. My last question though is, let's say after 3 years, okay, we think about a new, some other tool like iReady, right, which we want our students to use. Will they be, available to help us integrate it into their system and do it for free?
After 3 years, the product will go back to being free. We confirmed, like, okay, if we make a commitment and we participate in this for 3 years and we're providing funding for this, you're not going to come back to the well after 3 years, are you? And they've committed to us that they're not. So yes, we will continue to use the product.
And they will continue to develop in case if we have any new tool that they need to integrate, and it will be done for free.
Well, I have faith. I can't promise that part. I don't know that they've done it, but we've had a great working relationship. I really have a lot of faith that we'll continue to have a good working relationship in the future, 4 years out, where it's a partnership.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much for the very informative presentation. Good thing about waiting till last to ask questions is my questions have all been asked and answered, so there's that. But thank you. I know the rest of the board really appreciate all the work that goes into these presentations and into the program, so thank you.
Thank you.
Move to approve contract with Guru for Navigated Learning Platform for the 2021-2022 school year, total cost $150,000.
Second.
Having a motion by trustee Clements and a second by trustee Olson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item F, consider approval of contract with Edgenuity for use with the TK-12 grade independent study programs in the 2021-2022 school year. Staff report?
Yes, it was just Monday night of last week that the governor signed the budget late at night. On Tuesday morning, everybody showed up with their track shoes on, and we've been running really fast ever since. There's two processes to set up the curriculum for the independent study. One is the license side and the infrastructure side. We knew we had to get the infrastructure set up, and we took a guesstimation, and this is the guesstimation to start the process to get Edgenuity set up for whatever the total number of independent study students, TK8. will be. I can assure you there will be another one of these for a larger amount. But this is the inaugural, we need to get going, so the board approves this. Heather will contact the Edgenuity folks, they'll set it up, and putting in licenses is not a big deal. Setting it up is, and we want it ready for day one. I can assure you that on August 4th, there'll be another one of these. I would, when we get a solid number, it'll be the difference between this first 100 and whatever that is.
Can I ask a quick question? Do you know if we already, since this is already being used at the high school level, is this mostly additional curriculum for the TK through 8 level?
Yeah, it's the youngsters, TK8, but really TK5, right? Yeah, TK5.
Oh, okay, okay,
We have 0, so we got to set it all up.
okay.
Further questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve contract with Edgenuity for use with TK through 12th grade independent study programs in the 21-22 school year.
Second.
On a motion by Trustee Olson and seconded by Trustee Boulay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 10, information and discussion items, public school budgets. Staff report?
Yes, I'm going to give a quick presentation. I hope it's a quick presentation, a thoughtful and thorough analysis of the state budget. I'm going to do so from the podium because it gives me an opportunity to stand up. Give me a second to get over there, and then it's the 30,000-foot view, and then we're going to throw the ball to Mr. Harrison, who is going to set up the specifics of the independent study, and then we're going to throw the ball to the team that's going to oversee the program. So it's kind of a 30,000, 1,000, and a ground level view. Good evening, Mr. President, board members. It's my pleasure tonight to present to you an overview of the California state budget, which was approved last Monday night. First, I'm going to give some context and background. It was early last year at the beginning of the pandemic when everybody was considering an Armageddon scenario. We were told in the initial budget rollout that California was projecting a $54 billion shortfall. That all public entities that are funded by state dollars should prepare for unprecedented cuts. And what that meant for us in Lammersville Unified was that we were looking at revenue cuts somewhere in the area of 8% or $5.5 million. So there was a period of time without flop sweat. The entire team was looking at how are we going to find $5.5 million. I'd like to remind the board and the community that included in that budget was a loss of $2.3 million ultimately in the way the state set up our funding for last year through the hold harmless provision, which protected districts with declining and flat enrollment and did not fully fund districts that were growing, which is about 20% of the districts in the state of California. So what happened over the course of the last 18 months is it appeared that there were two economies emerging, one that was going really well in gangbusters and one that was in a set of crises and or collapsing. California's economy is really based on a boom and bust cycle of the stock market. And so if you really want to see how public school financing is going to go, all you need to do is really follow the stock market. If it's on an upward trend, that's going to be good for public school systems. If it's in a downward trend, or if we're in an economic crisis like the Great Recession, then we're looking at budget cuts to significant budget cuts. So one of the things that was not projected but ended up happening is the stock market remained steady and strong and grew during the course of the pandemic. So that impacted the $54 million budget deficit projection, and it turned out to be a much better story, which is that the revenues brought in by the taxes tied to California investment portfolios assisted in blocking the impacts of business closures, tax revenues, people losing jobs, and the like. So the very scary budget projection turned into a record surplus. Included with that, the additional tax revenues that were higher There were multiple COVID relief packages that were passed in Washington, D.C. over the course of 2020, and were able to supplement income for folks and businesses that help bring in tax dollars that in the original $54 billion deficit projection they didn't account for. And then ultimately at the beginning of this year, the American Rescue Plan was passed, and that brought in additional revenues for states and cities, which again kind of bring forward what became a $75.7 billion surplus. So we went from the wow $54 billion deficit to wow $75.7 billion surplus, all in a 365-day cycle. So it's been an amazing year in a lot of ways, and this is just yet another one. So Assembly Bill, Senate Bill 130 is what became the California budget. And it's important that we start with a celebration, and we want to acknowledge that for all the things that everyone's gone through, for public education, this is probably the greatest year for funding because of this surplus. But I also want to say to the community and the board, we have to celebrate this, but we have to look at it from a reality space. So what does that mean? In 2008 and 2012, public education bore the brunt of the Great Recession. That public services, in particular public education, we absorbed the state crunch with the lack of revenues that came in during that economic crisis. So when Governor Brown was elected, and he was a two-term governor, he wanted to transform public school funding, and out of that was the invention of local control funding formula. And so he simplified what it was. He got rid of categoricals, which are earmarked funds that come in to fund specific programs for specific things. And he said, look, we're going to just do it simple. Local control and a funding formula based on a block grant, English learners, foster youth, and low-income students getting additional supplemental grants, and for districts with very large portions of those three student populations, additional monies. And I bring that up as a setup for, because some of the funding that's coming in is associated with that. But also understand that the penultimate moment of the LCFF formula was we were going to get back to 2007, 2008 funding levels. Now, I want to remind everybody, because we have struggles with these numbers, it's 2021. And the celebration of LCFF, which we got to 3 years ago, was 2007, 2008 funding levels. Well, what does that really mean? Well, that means that California is, depending on the list, 38th to 42nd in per pupil funding in our country. We do not fund our public education system as other states do. And there's been lots of efforts to try to mitigate that, but ultimately where we stand today in our reality is Prop 15 failed in 2020. That was an attempt to raise tax revenues. It was associated with commercial property. I went to the voters. It lost 52% to 48%. And had it passed, 40% of those additional dollars would have gone to public schools. The state voters said no. I already brought up the hold harmless, but I want to remind everybody that that reality is we have less money. We had to fill those coffers, and all this extra money coming in is helping. But we started the race not at the starting line, but $2.3 million behind. And though we're very fast and we've been wearing our track shoes and running good, that is still a reality that has to be addressed. And then the other thing that I need to inform everyone about is most of this surplus is earmarked for districts that are different than the demographics in our district. And that doesn't mean we don't have additional monies, because we do. But a significant focus on this money is to go to high poverty communities, high poverty districts, and to address a lot of to mitigate and support the problems that happen in those communities, and to help assist with the closing of the gap, the achievement gap, and the poverty gap. So we are celebrating, but I want everyone to know that we're celebrating with a reality mindset, which is all of those things still remain true. All right, so Assembly Bill 130. So here's how the state is spending the surplus. There's a list of about 15 things. I'll go through some of them quickly. I'll explain others in a little more detail. So the cost of living adjustment, 5.07%. worthy of celebration. That's a great number. Remember that all COLA announcements by the state government are done in a very particular way. They announce the big number, and they don't announce the net number. So we're going to get 5.07%, but some of that's already spent. There's statutory things we have to do, such as step and column increases. So most employees in our district, including teachers and others who are on steps and columns, every year they advance, or at least for a particular period of time in their career, get more money by working an additional year. And then for a significant portion of our population of employees, earning additional college credits can also get you more money. So it's an incentive to stay in one place and to earn more expertise, and that's a great program. But that also costs us well over 1% every year. So that comes out of the COLA. There's other things like insurance and workman's comp and the retirement fund gap and all those other things. So really when you say 5.07%, we say thank you very much, that's great. But for us, that looks more like a net of about 3%. So we just want to be real about what that number is. It's a great number. We're very happy with it, but it's not really 5.07% after we already pay the things we're supposed to pay. The second is state categorical programs that got a cost of living adjustment at 1.7% increase, and that's great. The twist is, as the old system before Governor Brown was that they gave funds tied to categorical programs with specific rules for specific kids to do specific things. Governor Brown threw that out with LCFF, as I explained. It seems like the old era is coming back. So a lot of the funds that are coming to us are going to be specified for specific things, for specific reasons to do specific stuff. And we'll happily take the money and we'll happily apply that to those kids. But it appears that the era of categoricals are coming back, and they're now called grants because you don't call it the old thing, you call it a new thing. The cash deferrals. Now, this was a big deal and it made it very difficult for districts during the Great Recession. Was the state deferred its cash, so it didn't give us the money it owed us, and they kicked the can down the road to be able to get to the end of the fiscal year because they're constitutionally bound to balance the budget. So they did so with deferrals, with the plan of paying it back hopefully in the next year when the tax revenues were better. So at the $54 billion deficit level, that was the plan, and this state legislature said, nope, we're going to do massive deferrals, we're going to get through the pandemic, and then we'll figure out how we're going to fix it. Well, with the surplus, they were able to pay everything back this year, and there are no cash issues tied to that. So for districts, what that meant is, towards the end of the year, June or July, it was a possibility existed that cash would not exist to pay payroll. So districts would be forced to either take out a loan called a trans or put money aside and rob Peter to pay Paul until the government gave the money back. So that's very good news, is the deferrals are gone. Pension relief, I can't say that. Over the last 10 years, CalPERS and CalSTRS deficit of the obligation for the number of people in the pension system and what they owe for people who would end their career and retire, it doesn't line up. So Governor Brown said, instead of raising taxes, what we're going to do is we're going to take from the LCF block grant contribution, and we're going to ask districts at an incremental pace to go from approximately 8.25% of every employee's pension obligation, either PERS or STRS, and that ratcheted up to 20%. So we've been doing that, and we're at that level. And then what's happened with this budget crisis is they were going to suspend that and let people use that money for other purposes, fearing the deficit. In reality, what we've been doing is we've been protecting against that, but districts that were spending that money for other things are going to have to deal with the fact that they've got to find money to cover their obligation to the pension system. We're in good shape in that area. SPED, and this is huge, SPED contribution that the services rendered cost more than the state funds has been a significant and long-term budget struggle. But they gave us some good money. So they went from, increased from 90, the base rate increased 14.4%. And I appear to have left out the thing, but I think $90 went up to $114 per student. which reduces the general fund contribution, which is great because that means that money can be used for other things. But we still serve the needs of our kids in special ed. They also gave additional money for youngsters, first grade, based on first grade CBEDS numbers in 2020. And those increases will also help us with our youngest kids who need special ed services. This is one where there's a big increase and we get $0 from it. And that is that the concentration grants, so remember there's a block, there's supplemental for the 3 categories, and then there's concentration if you have a large percentage of your population. We don't have those large populations. We don't get any of the money. But the state made the decision to support English learners, foster youth, and low-income students by increasing the proportionality from 50% to 65%. The good news for Mr. Harrison and our team is that we don't have to write the plan that goes with those additional funds. So, or at least we're going to write. We aren't getting any money, but thank you. Then the other rule, this is kind of simplified. The carryover dollars used to be able to roll back if you didn't spend all of your LCFF proportionality, then you could roll it into the general fund, but they're going to require us that we earmark that money for specific types of students. There's a new challenge coming down the road, which begins in 22-23, which is the expansion of TK. And it's going to start a 4-year cycle where you get a transition to what the new model is. We're very much along the way with that, but that 4-year cycle starts in 22-23 and ends in 25-26. But we have to have a plan by June 30th of 2022. And no, I can't give you all the specifics because we haven't written the plan because we've been writing other plans. But just putting that on the table, that's part of Assembly Bill 130 and the approved state budget. There are 3 grants for additional funds coming our way. We have to fill out a plan. And all of them come with a plan. Because when you fill out categorical plans, you might as well have something different for each one. So educator effectiveness, $1.5 billion. It's tied to the FTE numbers of your staffing of teachers, and it has to be spent by 2026. The A through G Success Grant is $547 million, and that is to help A through G completion rates. Again, A through G is the CSU UC approved high school courses. And lead to high school graduation, which obviously this money is going to lead to lots of districts improving their graduation numbers. I want to acknowledge Mr. Faubert, who's been sitting there patiently all night. For the last 2 years at Mountain House High School, the eligible students, right, not all of the kids in the 4-year cycle, but the kids who showed up on day 1 that stayed to the end of the school year for the last 2 years, all 100% of them have graduated. So kudos to Mr. Faubert and team. But we'll take that money anyways and we'll make it work. And then there's the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grants, which supports preschool and after-school programs to $750 million. And then finally, there's some confusions about this, the free meals, breakfast and lunch program. So there are 2, one that's not coming for a year and one that's in existence and one we're applying for. So it's creating some confusion around what it is we're doing. So we applied for the seamless summer option, got the money to feed breakfast and lunch to all. We are applying for the regular school year one, assuming that we get it. We'll do the same thing. And then there's federal dollars that are coming in 22-23, and I'm sure those will come with the need for a plan. So that is my budget overview. I wanted to give you that in the context of all the things that we're working on. Within the Assembly Bill, Senate Bill 130 is also the mandates that have directed us on the independent study program, and that's our next agenda item.
Board President Pombo, trustees, Dr. Nicholas, thank you for having me this evening. So I'm going to dovetail off of Dr. Nicholas's presentation with the specifics of Assembly Bill and Senate Bill 130 as it is in regards to independent study. So independent study or long-term independent study has existed in Lammersville for quite a long time because the high school has an online program that is technically a long-term independent study program. In Lammersville Elementary School District, the TK8 version, we have not had long-term independent study for our students. We've had short-term independent study for students needing less than 20 days of independent study, but we have not had independent study per se as it exists at the high school. So the new bill changed the verbiage for independent study from districts may offer to districts shall offer. So now we must offer independent study because of the verbiage in this mandate that came down last Monday night. So with that, we have to follow the rules of independent study that have been laid out and have been in existence for a number of years. Now, the presentation I'm going to go through here is 4 or 5 slides. The independent study rules are 7 or 8 pages of code and rules, and I'm kind of hitting highlights. Most of the rules and the procedures that need to be in place have already been established by the high school because they've had the program going for some time. So what are the reasons for a student to enroll in long-term independent study, or the Lammersville Elementary Online, which we affectionately call LEO program? Extending content, special interest subjects, alternative placement or student welfare, continuing study during travel, volunteer activities or leadership opportunities abroad or even in country. And then this is the key change: individualized study for a pupil whose health would be at risk by in-person instruction as determined by the parent or guardian of the pupil. So this was a big shift in independent study because previously staff made the judgment call, or the team that met to recommend independent study made the judgment call on whether or not the individual had the right reasons or the right causes to go into independent study. Now it's shifted a little bit, and when you have a student that may be going on home and hospital or short term, oftentimes there's a doctor's note attached to a medical reason. Now the reason is determined by the parent or guardian of the pupil. One of the things that is also required is parent notification of the program, the fact that we are going to have that program in Lammersville Unified School District. That has happened, that's ongoing, it continues. We've spoken about it a number of times tonight. So more new requirements for LEO. TK3, there has to be a facet of daily synchronous instruction. And for grades 4 through 8, there has to be live interaction and weekly synchronous interaction. Now, what is their definition of synchronous? This is a little different than distance learning. This is their definition here. Classroom style, small group, that should be one, not ono. 1-to-1 delivered in person by phone or internet. Live interaction is defined as education staff maintaining school connection through wellness checks, progress monitoring, provision of services, and instruction delivered in person, phone, or internet. The other thing that can be considered live interaction is interactions provided student to student for socialization. Continued, parents have a right for a pupil parent educator conference. This is mandated before they start the program. There is a sit-down meeting or a face-to-face Zoom meeting of the parent, the educator, and in our case, the administrator of the program, to verify that all criterion are met and that all parties agree to the contract and to agree to the educational process that's going to ensue once they enroll in the program. There's a written agreement. It's signed by all parties. In the old days, it used to have to be handwritten. It used to have to be a wet signature. However, now it can be an electronic signature. There's also re-engagement mandated, and there has to be a re-engagement plan for students that are not attending or students that are not progressing in independent study once they're in the program. So what does that look like? What is that defined as? Not progressing or not attending. Missing 3 days in a school week or 60% of the week. Not meeting minimum standard when it comes to grades or assignments. Missed assignments. Not meeting the social emotional needs of the student. If a student is not succeeding and they're having issues social emotionally, they should not be in the program. And then finally, violation of the written agreement. So some of the other requirements for this program are it has to have aligned content that is of equivalent nature to what is taught in the classroom. And then there has to be regular meetings to review student progress before you would take any action of moving a student out of LEO. So there has to be intervention, which we do a really good job in our school district providing as it is. There has to be a form of intervention before you say, hey, this program's not right for your student. We've got to move your student out of this program. And all of that has to be documented. Some of the other mandates, which some of them make a lot of sense, you must ensure connectivity of devices. You must provide an expeditious return to in-person learning upon request by the parent. And it's written in there that you have 5 school days to get them back on the books. That doesn't necessarily mean, and we'll have more information about this in the next presentation, that doesn't necessarily mean that the student gets to return to their home school. If there's not room, they'll go to a school that has room. We have to report data in CalPads like we do for every other program that we have in our school district. We have to record attendance, and record of completed work and assessments are required. We're going to have to make updates to the board policy that we have for independent study. We have in possession that we received today a model product for our school district to update our board policy. That'll be coming to the next board meeting for approval. And then student caseloads have to follow our collective bargaining agreement on what our class sizes are for independent study as well as in our general regulated classes. Next up we have Irene Busatil will be giving the second part of this. So my presentation is kind of the nuts and bolts and the rules that we kind of have to follow for independent study in the program. Yes, sir.
I have a question, and I think you're probably the best one to answer it if there is an answer to be had. Have rules come out as far as movement from in-person into LEO once the school year is started? In other words, if a parent decides, I don't want my kid going in person anymore, can they move into LEO at that time?
My understanding is that if there's a space, you need to move the kid. Now, I think the only time that there would be an exception is you can't go back and forth, because if we don't have room, we would have to take time to hire a teacher and get space and do all those things. But yes, my understanding is a student can enroll the first day of school. Yeah. The way it was written, independent study, they left a lot to local because they didn't want to put parameters that other school districts couldn't mandate or handle, I think. So they changed the rules enough to make it fit for those that don't want to have their kids in person because of COVID. And at the same time, they changed a couple rules that they haven't liked for a long time, because things haven't been changed since '92. So it's a couple things happened with those adjustments, I think. And
correct me if I'm wrong, if I understood you correctly, that's the general interpretation, but they haven't really come out with hard and fast rules that address movement or those things.
There's 2 pieces of movement that they haven't addressed. That's the first one. The second one is when you have the progressive meetings to exit someone out of the program because they're not being successful and not completing, they would go back to the school site. However, if you have mask mandates at the school site and a student/parent refuse to wear a face covering, we have to provide an alternative. Well, that alternative is independent study. If they're not successful in independent study, they have to go back to the school site. So it creates a vicious circle. So there's a couple things that they have to resolve that we haven't received guidance on yet, but I'm sure there will be some clarifying guidance. CSBA just put out a document related to those last 2 instances.
I'm very happy that you're sure that they will come out with some.
Well,
It'll be on May 24th.
Yeah,
I'm hopeful.
exactly.
Maybe I should say I'm hopeful.
Mr. Pombo, I kind of screwed up the agenda, so I think you could move to B with Mrs. Bustatil's presentation.
Okay, then we will go to item B, Senate Bill, Assembly Bill, Senate Bill 130, Independent Study Program, Lammersville Education Online. And I will ask for a staff report, and I'm guessing that Director Busatil will be the one giving that staff report.
Good evening, President Pombo, trustees, Dr. Nicholas.
Welcome.
So I'm very happy to be here this evening to introduce you to Leo. So that is our Lammersville Elementary Online, and it will be housed at Lammersville Elementary School. So Lammersville Elementary Online is an independent study home program option for our students that are enrolled in Lammersville Elementary School, and this will meet the requirements outlined by AB SB 130. So the curriculum that we will be using, the online platform, is Edgenuity, and as Trustee Boulay mentioned earlier, we are already familiar with this product for our 6th through 8th grade students, but what we will be doing is expanding to our TK through 5th grade students. So each student would have all of their core content in addition to their enrichment like music, art, any type of like elective activities for the upper grades would all be through that same Edgenuity platform. And then there would also be a personalized learning plan delivered by a credentialed teacher as the partnership to the learning coach who is going to be the parent or an identified adult in the home. So all students must have a learning coach at home that is identified by the parents or guardians that are going to be partnering with the Lammersville Unified teacher to make sure that we have a seamless transition in the education of all of our students. So with that, we're going to make sure that we are meeting with a team meeting with the LUSD teacher, the learning coach, which is most likely going to be the parent or guardian, to make sure, and the student, to make sure that we're all on the same page and we're starting to have a firm foundation of what the school year is going to look like. Because it is going to be different than a traditional in-person classroom, and it will be different than LVLA for our students that participated in that last school year. So they're going to make sure that there are regular review meetings to talk about their learning goals, to make sure that the student's making progress, and that we're kind of keeping track of additional areas where the parent and or the learning coach might need additional support. Whoopsie, went too far. So there will be progress meetings, and these are going to be tailored to meet the needs of each individual learner, and that will be with the learning coach again, the student, and the teacher. We want to make sure that we're providing options for enrichment and or intervention for our students. So some of that intervention will come into additional materials. We will also be utilizing some of our existing programs like iRead as an enrichment or a supplement. ST Math will still be available, but the bulk of it will be through Edgenuity. And then some of the synchronous instruction, that will also be like small group instruction, one-on-one instruction, perhaps some whole classes. It's really going to depend on the need of the individual learner or the group of learners. It's important to note that some of the assessments will need to be completed in person. So that would be for some of our standardized tests that we can't do remotely. Like, so for example, LPAC, the test for our English learners, there are some portions of that, if we want to get the best measure for our student, that will need to be on a one-to-one setting at the school site with the person administering, proctoring the test, because there's some speaking elements that we want to make sure that we're getting an accurate read on. Our average daily attendance, the ADA, is going to be collected through attendance, and it'll also be with how much work the students are doing through daily engagement and the assignments in their pathway completion through Edgenuity. At each of the meetings, the supervising teacher, the LUSD teacher, is going to do all of the necessary documentation that we need behind the scenes if we were to get audited to show that we're monitoring our student progress, that we're interacting with the parents, that we're meeting the needs of our individual students. And so students that are not making adequate progress, if we have concerns about their social and emotional needs or any of those types of things, that's when we're going to offer more tiered interventions and supports to those students and families. Every 6 weeks, there are benchmark assessments through Edgenuity, so that is also going to be an additional measure of making sure that we're meeting the needs of all of the students. So with that, the tiered re-engagement plan, so all of our students are going to start out tier 1, which means that they are going to attend live sessions, they're going to be making progress, logging into Edgenuity, and making progress in their lesson completion. So our goal is to keep all of our students on tier 1. However, we do know that even though it's vastly different than LVLA, there's going to be a transition period. Even though families might be used to doing things remotely, it is a different platform for many families. It's a different structure. So we do know that we want to make sure that we're being very proactive in the supports that we're offering. For students that are not engaging in 60% of the in-person sessions or assignment completion, then we're going to step them up to tier 2, and there's going to be some additional expectations and support from the supervising teacher. Of course, the notification is going to go out that we have concerns about their students' progress. Additional interventions might be a one-to-one meeting, or I should say like a trio meeting with the parent, the teacher, and the student to make sure that, you know, what can we do additional to support you, what concerns do you have, what are some of the hiccups, making sure that there's the internet connectivity hasn't all of a sudden become a problem, there's not a device problem, so all of those types of troubleshooting that we would like to do with our families. If the problems persist, the concerns persist, then it would go to a tier 3. And so that's if anything that's been outlined in tier 2 hasn't been met, we're continuing to see those same type of problems, or maybe there's new problems that are arising that, you know, we're not able to address in the tier 2. So then it would go to a tier 3, and at that point in time, we would also do something as a district team of making sure that we're doing like a cost team approach of deploying as many resources as we can to the students and the families, and that would be when we're having the conversation more explicitly, plainly, that this may not be the best fit for the student and or the family. Again, we are making sure that we're following all of the established rules that have been outlined for us through CDE, all of the independent study rules. In regards to eligibility, Mr. Harrison already mentioned that it's a pupil whose health would be put at risk by in-person instruction as determined by their parent or guardian. So it's not like there's a doctor's note or anything like that that has to be submitted. It's just the parent saying, I have my student's health is a concern, and they need to participate in the independent study program. There needs to be an adult learning coach at home committed to being the educational partner, and I would like to emphasize again that this is different than LVLA. So there is a definite need for the learning coach to be in the home, daily interacting with the student. And then there would be completing an independent study master agreement for the 21-22 school year. So we are asking families, we are really, really strongly encouraging them to make a year-long commitment because we know that that seamless consistency is what's best for our students. However, independent study is a voluntary program. So as Mr. Harrison referenced earlier, if a parent would like to transition between independent study back to in-person, we need to make that transition within 5 days. Again, we would not be able to guarantee placement at their prior school or school of residence. It would be dependent on what space we have available. To get all of our families ready, there will be an orientation. So the parents or the learning coach would need to attend the orientation, and that would be with our LEO staff. In addition, for our 6th through 8th grade students, we know it starts to tip to where some more of the responsibility for the logging in shifts to our students. So those students would have a specialized orientation to meet their needs. And then also, of course, our supervising teachers would hold class meetings to make sure that we're still doing that community building with each one of our students that are in LEO. Again, just filling out the interest form online. Then the families would need to attend an orientation that would be virtual, review and sign the independent study master agreement, and the next step is to get started on their school year, and then just keep that communication open between the students, the parents, guardians, and the LUSD LEO teacher. So our team at the site will be Mrs. Jennifer Duran, who is a principal at Lammersville Elementary School, and then our district person will be Ms. Karen Perez, who is our vice principal of alternative education, and she has been an immense help as we're getting this started because, as Mr. Harrison mentioned earlier, we already have a fantastic program going at the high school, and that's due in large part to all of her work. So that has really helped us to hit the ground, not just running. I think we have like rollerblades on or something. So we are in really good spot.
And I think people are familiar with Jennifer Duran, but if you haven't met Karen Perez, why don't you stand up and so you people can see who you are? She's been doing a great job for us. Duran, if you want to stand up, you're welcome to do so too, please. Sorry, my bad.
So as I mentioned, it will be at Lammersville Elementary School. So it'll be an opportunity for more of our families to become acquainted with our first school in Lammersville Unified School District. So far, we've identified some potential rooms. Room 10, is near the staff room for any of you that have been at Lammersville. Room 19, which is a portable at the top part of the campus, and then room 25, which is a portable at the corner of Hanson and Von Sosten. However, looking at information that came in from the survey, we do have additional rooms and spaces identified if needed. So what does a day look like for our students? And so the minutes that you see in the left-hand column, that is in accordance to the minutes identified by CDE. And then on the right side, that's what we're anticipating it would look like in partnership with what Edgenuity has shared with us as well. For our youngest students, and last year our TK students did not have an opportunity to participate in LVLA, but with the guidance, we do have to offer Leo independent study to our TK students, so you'll see them there under the same guidance as our kindergarten students. Up to 45 minutes of synchronous instruction. So synchronous instruction, it might vary from student to student. You might have a student that needs just a kind of like a touch, they're on track, they're doing everything they need to do, they just need a little bit of the community building, some instruction, nothing, there's not a great educational need, there's more like social. So those students might have just a moment, whereas other students might need some more intensive intervention, some additional support. And so the students could have up to 45 minutes of synchronous instruction with their teacher, and then 2 to 3 hours of independent assignments through Edgenuity. For our students in first through third, it goes up to 230 minutes, and then you see things start to change there for a little bit. There's going to be up to 90 minutes of synchronous instruction based on need and the teacher's planning, the Leo teachers planning, and then 4 to 5 hours of independent online assessments. Again, trying to be mindful of how much time our students are spending online and knowing that just like in a traditional classroom, our students are going to work through the Edgenuity platform at different rates as well. So that's why there's a little bit of a variation. And then students that would like additional work, there still will be like ST Math, iRead, and things like that. And then lastly, our students in grades 4 through 8, 240 minutes. And then you see that there is a transition. They do not have to have the daily synchronous instruction, but they do have to have daily interaction, and then weekly synchronous instruction. So what does it look like for our teachers? So our teachers will be working on site at Lammersville Elementary School. So that'll be part of the professional development community, the PLC there on site. So they'll be working together, not just with the Leo team, but with the Lammersville team as a whole. Providing their synchronous instruction daily to their students if they're in TK through 3, and then 4th through 8th grade, the daily live interaction and the weekly synchronous instruction. Making sure that they're meeting with their students, their learning coaches every single day, on a regular basis, providing opportunities for intervention and enrichment, the small group, and making sure that they're doing everything that we need behind the scenes to meet the requirements of the state. From Edgenuity, they said that our teachers should expect to have about 3 hours of grading and feedback per day, as well as 2 hours of availability to work with students and families. We have the tentative professional development days for the teachers have been identified as August 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So those teachers would be coming in prior to our regular professional development days because there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for our teachers, and we want to support them as much as possible. Now, what would it look like for the learning coach or the parent or guardian? So I want to reiterate that there will be a lot of preparation for our parents. They would anticipate like 45 minutes the night before preparing. So, you know, what's today? Wednesday. I'm going to spend 45 minutes or so making sure that I'm prepared for the next day's lesson on Thursday. And then maybe if it's Wednesday, I might be looking ahead to what's going on next week to make sure I have all the materials and things that I need on hand, and I have the opportunity to ask questions if needed. They're going to need to be able to discuss the concepts being taught with their student, to assist with the technology tools, to make sure they're overseeing assignments, to kind of conduct those hands-on activities and facilitate those conversations, to make sure that their students are engaging daily with the content, whether it's a traditional book for like a novel study or something through Edgenuity with the platform. And then again, keeping the communication open with the LEO teacher as well.
Can I ask a question here? Since we're on this screen for the learning coach that's at home.
Yes.
Is the learning coach going to have access to the Edgenuity, I don't know, screens that the teacher has, or are they going to have to just like teach the content or help the kids understand the content through the student's Edgenuity page? Does my question make sense?
Yes, it does. And I'm almost positive, but I want to double check because the parents are going to have an Edgenuity orientation as well. Is there a parent port that they'll go through as well?
Yes, there's learning coach resources on the student side of the portal that the parents could review and use, like Irene said the night before.
Okay, thank you.
So that concludes my presentation. Are there any additional questions that I can answer?
I do have 3 questions. So the first one is going to be, you mentioned about the meeting with the learning coach, the teacher, and the student. Is that going to be an in-person meeting, or is it going to be an online?
They're scheduled to be virtual meetings.
Thank you. And the second question is more for the public to gain some knowledge. Can you state the difference between LVLA and LEO, please?
So LBLA, what we did last year in response to COVID-19, there was our Lammersville Unified teachers doing the bulk of the delivery in person. So teachers spent multiple hours per day interacting with their students and providing the instruction. The big shift is while our teachers will still be providing instruction, it's not going to be stretched over multiple hours for a single day. That is going to shift because the platform is different through Edgenuity. So that's going to be the main difference. The learning coach, the parent or guardian, is going to be the primary facilitator on the day-to-day basis.
Thank you. My last question is, will the Guru be available for our LEO students too?
I wouldn't see why we would not be able to offer that.
Potentially we could. I think one thing we have to be really careful of is that they're going to be on an online platform learning for multiple hours a day doing their regular core content. And so they certainly could access other platforms, but we want to really make sure that we're balancing how much online time that they're spending learning from online providers.
Okay.
And just for the recording, so people can hear, so we have to balance out the screen time with the request for an additional platform on top of Edgenuity, so it's possible, but we want to be leery of too much on-screen time. Did I get that right?
Correct.
Got it. But, okay, let me phrase this in another way. Will the Guru navigator, let's say our students are working on Edgenuity, and then iReady and things like that, will the teachers who are working with the LEO students be able to use the status update from the Guru to monitor their progress?
So from my understanding, those two programs, Edgenuity and Guru, are not integrated at this point in time. Is that correct?
That doesn't mean there aren't ample opportunities for data. It's just not in the time and all the other things. It's just not going to line up perfectly. Edgenuity is a standards-based curriculum, which has to be aligned, and we're going to start there. And then we have other mechanisms that I'm sure Heather could go into great details, but it's probably not tenable in that perfect way we could do it.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
So I've gotten a number of calls from the public, so I wanted to make a comment, and then I have a question. I want to make it clear to parents and the public that The independent study is not a continuation of LVLA under a different name. It is a completely different paradigm. It is independent study, which means the driving, and under LVLA, we did the teachers of Lammersville and the Unified School District and the administrators did the absolute best that they could to still drive the education platform remotely, online.
Correct.
It was the best that we could come up with for our students. Independent study is truly independent study, which is why there has to be a learning coach at home. The major driving force behind it is going to be the learning coach under the guidance of certificated and trained teachers. So I'm hoping that everyone understands that, because I've gotten a lot of calls from people basically saying, so when is this new LVLA? And I'm like, whoa, time out. The next thing though is, so this transitions into a question that I was asked. Okay, so if it's independent study and there has to be a learning coach at home, does the learning coach have to be available during class hours? Because under independent study, if I do it for 2 weeks and I go to Rome, right? I can do my independent study projects whenever, right? And so my understanding is, the expectation is that the learning coaches are there and available during class hours. Am I correct or not?
That is correct.
Okay. Because I think parents need to understand that before they sign up for independent study.
Yes, there's a big commitment from the family that selects independent study because, as you said, the learning coach is the parent or guardian that's been identified in the home, and they will be the primary facilitators in the home in the day-to-day instruction under the guidance of a LEO teacher.
I would have preferred they come up with a different word because everybody's familiar with independent study that's taken their kid out for 2 weeks, or their child out of the school for 2 weeks. Everybody's familiar with that. And so calling, unfortunately, it is what it is. We have to call it that because that's what SB AB 130 says. But it's causing some confusion among the public, I think.
Just to clarify, the student and learning coach would not have to be available for exact set hours every day as school hours. Is that correct?
It's going to kind of depend and vary from teacher to teacher. So there might be some one-to-one sessions. So that's going to be the partnership with the LEO teacher, the learning coach, and the student. So there will be a big variation in what that looks like based on the individual needs of the students, and they'll be outlined in that learning plan.
Piggybacking a little bit off of what Trustee Cummings was saying, because parents have reached out to me as well about, asking, please provide the distance learning for our students. And I want to say this publicly for anybody watching the meeting. What I've been suggesting is if they feel really strongly about what the state has decided, to please reach out to our state representatives and let them know, because they pretty much handcuff the leadership of this district to follow what they outlined in their guidelines. But like Trustee Clements said, it is really important to understand that this is independent study, and I kind of had a few questions that I think that parents would like to hear to help them make the decision, if you can help answer these. And one of them is kind of basic, but when we had the virtual learning academy, those students were still getting music, with the music teacher, and I believe they still had the PE teacher. With independent study, will they have music? Will the middle school students have electives like band, or is that something they will be sacrificing in choosing independent study?
So all of the intervention and enrichment will be through Edgenuity. So the short answer, to be plain, is that they wouldn't have an assigned PE teacher at their school of residence or an assigned music teacher at their school of residence.
Okay. And the other question that two other questions. One, probably Dr. Nicholas or Assistant Superintendent Harrison would answer this. is people are concerned that if they choose independent study, the long-term independent study, that will count against their, 3 independent studies throughout the course of their students.
No,
I'm going to strongly predict
no.
that the board is going to choose when we bring forward the CSBA template for the board policy that we would, there'd be some freezing of that particular, because they're a huge apple versus an orange.
Yeah, that's what I would predict, but I didn't want to like promise something
Right.
without knowing absolutely for sure. So, and then a lot of the parents that have talked to me are waffling. They don't know what to choose, and their big question is, what is in-person school going to look like in the fall? Because it will be different, because we had the hybrid model before where it was, until the last 3 weeks of school, and so they're just curious what.
So it's a great question. We're very proud that we got all the people who wanted their kids to have as close to normal at the end of the school year got close to normal, including a promotion ceremony for 8th graders and a high school graduation. It's going to look a lot like that. We're going to follow whatever the guidance is on mask wearing at the time, but here's what it presently is, and I answered this earlier. At a school, you're indoors, adult or kid, you're wearing a mask. Presently, if you go outside and you're following the rules of social distancing, you can take it off. PE, I'm going to predict if it's outside, take it off. So that's 1. 2, we're going to clean. Jimmy LeGrand over there is become an expert, and we have 75,000 pallets of hand sanitizer in the warehouse. In fact, we're going to be bringing forward to buy a new warehouse just to stock it up. So there's that stuff. But in all seriousness, it's going to be as close to normal as possible. The mask thing is what it is presently. It is always possible that public health will give a new expectation, but that's what it is right now, and that's what we expect it to be. And that's what we're going forward with.
And by always possible, you mean highly likely.
Yeah, it's possible. But if everyone's masking indoors with the current state of affairs, that's the best mitigation for spread that is in existence today.
And then just follow up on what you just said with one more question that parents, especially of the littles, TK through 2nd, they're concerned about their kids going back to school in person is not that their kids cannot wear a mask, but that, and I think some teachers of the younger kids might have this concern, is that the mask doesn't give them the best education in the environment that they need, because they need to see the face and the mouth. And so my question is, safety-wise, can we allow teachers and students, if they want, of those grades, to wear a face shield without a mask? Or is that, I've spoken to a few doctors that think that's safe, but I don't know what the guidance is, and I don't know if that's something that we could ask about, because if they consider it to be safe, for as far as slowing the spread and all that, it would be a win-win educationally for the young students to be able to see their teacher's face, and the teacher to see them, and also it would still keep them safe.
Does anyone know the
So as of now, the guidance is a face covering, a mask is to be worn indoors by all persons. The exceptions would be if someone has a medical exemption, and it specifically states in the guidance that if a student or a staff member has a medical exemption, that they should wear a face shield with a drape at the bottom of it. Unless, of course, that's, going to impact them, in their medical condition as well. So as of now, it would be a face covering while indoors.
Okay.
I have one more question that came to me. So for the middle school students, will they have the option for electives, and will this be an opportunity for middle school students to start world languages that can maybe then carry over to the high school?
So through Edgenuity, there are enrichment in electives. Is there different languages?
In our course management school for Edgenuity, there are world languages. Hi. Yes, in the Edgenuity course management system, we do have access to world language courses for middle school grades, but I don't know if we've made a decision yet if we'll be using those or not.
Okay.
Any other questions?
That was a very clever way to expand the program.
Once again, I have the benefit of going last, so all of my questions have been answered. I do have one question for Dr. Nicholas, and I would like for him to give a brief overview of the changes in laws, rules, and funding that caused the end of LVLA and the necessity to develop LEO.
So when the pandemic, on March 13th, 2020, a day that will live in infamy, that was the day we closed the district. All 14 school districts in San Joaquin County made that decision as a team. I think it was 150,000 students stopped coming to school. Soon thereafter, we were working our way through the year, but essentially what happened is the realities of the pandemic and the state legislature and the $54 billion deficit concerns all kind of hit the same time. So essentially they suspended ed code related to the collection of attendance and opened the door for distance learning attendance to fund ADA to schools. And so that's the start of the distance learning model. That was a one-year commitment that ended on June 30th of this year, 2021. There was a very real expectation early in the May revise of the governor's budget that students would go to school in person and that there would not be a support on his part of distance learning programs. But he left open the door for the potential use of independent study as a intermediary for very concerned families. So the May revise is the governor says in the January, here's what our proposal is. In May, here's what the tax revenues are. Here's what our proposal is. They negotiate from May to when they finish, usually in June. And the negotiated settlement was no distance learning, no freezing of that ed code, but what you can do is follow what the presentation Mr. Harrison gave, which are these rules, in particular that TK3, 4, 8, 9, 12 interaction rules. The independent study thing itself comes with a set of rules and explanations and a long history typical for high school students and an old packet orientation for kids who are gone for 2 weeks. So they took and tweaked an old program, gave us new direction to give people an option if they were very concerned due to health concerns, and that's how it went down. So on June 30th, distance learning is done. LVLA, therefore, was done. So the idea for LEO was we can't call it LVLA 2. We have to rebrand it. So LEO was that. I picked out the mascot. I'm very proud to say that. I like the guy with the turtleneck. But the idea is this is a independent study pathway, for lack of a better term, a program associated with the new rules given to us in the state budget under law, SB AB 130, and then we gave, one of the rules is you have to tell every parent of the option, which we did in our questionnaire, and then you have to follow all the rules that Director Busatil gave to meet all these needs. So it's really an apple and an orange, I agree with Trustee Clements, the monumental effort made by the administrations at the school sites, and in particular the teachers and staff, to pull off what we pulled off last year was Mount Everest level effort. A, I don't know if we couldn't sustain that if we tried to do that. That's going to burn people out. But B, the law is the law, the rules are the rule, the mandate is the mandate. It's our job to follow the rules and do the best we can with what we got. So we've got this set of rules, and there is no distance learning, and this is what we're going to do. So I hope that answered your question. So there's facts and laws, and then here's what you got to do. Now, here's how we're going to do it.
I will give what I took from what you just said, and correct me if I'm wrong. There's no funding for an LVLA type program because the ed code is back in place the way it was before, and we can't get student ADA for those students. We have to and must do the independent study as it's laid out here.
Correct, and they're going to audit us that we followed the rules. So it's not like it's a trust system. This is state bureaucracy. The county's going to check it, and the state's going to check it. And if we do something wrong, then we put at risk funding, the general fund funding. And then just a additional point is, originally we weren't going to be able to use the ESSER money, the learning loss mitigation money, and the county number 2 budget person and the county number 1 budget person has changed their interpretation of that and have confirmed that we can use that money. So if we follow the rules, we don't put at risk any general fund dollars. And by following the rules, we can also use the ESSER dollars, which is what it's for in the first place. And it's like a 2 birds with 1 stone without a consequence. So that is the direction as we've been given it as of today.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments by the board?
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Think that.
But wait, there's more.
Sorry, I was asked to give a little summation once everything was through. Board President Pombo. I just wanted to kind of give a little background on the architecture. We had an architecture for this program built previously, and we discussed a little bit of our plan with the board previously. And I just want to take this time to kind of give you the brain trust of once everything went down last Monday, Tuesday in cabinet, Dr. Nicholas and his team, we all came together and the architecture was reviewed, all the work assignments were divvied out, and I want to make sure that Heather Sherburne, Karen Perez, Irene Bustil, that group really did a lion's share of the work getting this program moving and going. And moving forward, Karen Perez and Principal Jen Duran over there will be running the program, and they've been brought into the loop, and everything has been very fast. I mean, since last Tuesday, so literally it's been a week. And in that time, we've discussed the architecture, created the architecture. We've identified a location, which is Lammersville School. We've communicated with LTA to discuss contract and how teachers can either transfer in to the program or what may happen if we don't have enough teachers to fill the program requirements. Communicated with families. We posted the positions, which we had to do very quickly to get everything through the process. We identified the content to be used. We've ordered workbooks. System integration has started with the IT staff. We've identified the space in the rooms at Lammersville that need to be cleaned out, stuff moved. Every single room needs work. And as I go through this list, I'm thinking in my head, every single division in Lammersville Unified is working on this project in one way or another. And it's been pretty amazing in the last 5 days. They've all come together, everybody's getting to work, and everybody's moving. And when we give our presentations at the board, we're like a duck. We're very calm on top, but our legs are going really fast underwater, and all the things that are done on the side are really kind of energetic and moving. But when we get here, everything's kind of set. So we also have a to-do list. So you're in the know of what the to-do list is. We have to prepare the teacher workspaces with tech, drops, phones, make sure every workspace has that working at Lammersville School. We have to hire officially and place the teachers, and then backfill teachers at the school sites if they still need a teacher because of pulling a teacher off of campus. So the staffing to this is very complex, and HR and Irene Bustil will have quite the job in the next 2 weeks managing the staffing pieces. We're going to hire a attendance clerk to help out with questions to the public and make the program run smoothly at Lammersville. They're going to have an additional potentially 400 students on campus, bringing them up to over 600 students on campus. Well, not on campus, some virtually on campus, some on campus. But you still have the need for communication to parents and all that stuff. We have to do attendance tracking still and figure out how that's going to be mandated by the county and what we have to do in our systems to make sure attendance is done correctly. We have to do an orientation for the parents. We have to train our teachers, which those dates were already brought forward by Ms. Bustil. And then we have to meet physically over Zoom with every single parent. So if we have 400 students, that's 400 meetings. So that has to get done before we start school in August. So there's a lot going on between now and then. And then last but not least, how do we feed them? So we have to figure out the process because we do have to provide meals to students that are on independent study or on our campuses. So we do have to figure out how we are going to staff the nutrition services at the school site and how students will pick up or parents will pick up if that's what we need to do. So Bernie Hill's working on that as we speak. So literally every division in our school district is working on this right now.
A couple of questions, and the first one you may not have an answer for yet. Are you talking about feeding those kids through Lammersville School or through somewhere in the district?
That's the plan we're working on. Because we have to continue to feed those students and provide either a bag like we did previously for the week or every other day, and Bernie will have to figure that out with her staffing and or maybe hire another staff member. So
The second question is the internet, Wi-Fi, bandwidth, all those jargon words, adequate at Lammersville to handle the needs of these distance teachers, of these independent study teachers?
the director of IT will do a walk with me for all the rooms. I walked the rooms today with Dr. Nicholas and with the principal of the school. We did final walkthrough of if we have this many teachers, we're going to go to this. If we have this many teachers, we'll move to this. So I'm going to do another walkthrough with the director of IT. We're going to check every single room, check for drops, check for power, and figure out everything that we need, and it'll all be in place by the time the teachers get there. So.
Thank you. Further questions or comments for?
Mr. President, can I add one last piece?
Certainly.
While all the divisions are working on this is a program that's going to impact, 400 or so students. We're anticipating 7,000 total students. So there's 6,600 other students who are going to come in person, and we're getting ready for all that too. So kudos to everyone.
One last comment though. At Kieran Wright, where I work, we just brought everyone back, and one of our things that we didn't think about that I want to impart, because maybe you've already thought about it, but maybe you haven't, is we put up shields between people's cubes and created all that safety, but now we have all of those people on the phone more, talking with, because they're doing Zoom instead of going to the client sites. So now we have a whole bunch of people having a whole bunch of Zoom and telephonic calls, and it quickly started to sound like, like the telemarketing operation.
Yeah.
So, be mindful of the sound bleed through.
We did discuss that actually today, in the facilities that we're looking at. Yeah. Thank you, though.
Further questions or comments by the board?
I just wanted to acknowledge all the efforts you've all made. I know it had to happen so fast, and getting the surveys out, and I also want to thank the community for responding to the survey in the numbers that they did, because that really helps. I know that's always a nerve-wracking moment when you don't know how many people will respond, and you don't want to do the guesswork. So I think the response that we received is amazing, and will be very helpful.
And I would just like to thank Dr. Nicholas and Associate Superintendent Harrison and everybody else that's working on this throughout the district and that will be working on it in the future for all the hard work. And as always, our staff is doing the best job possible for our students, and something I'm always proud of. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 11, calendar. Wednesday, August 4th is our next regular governing board meeting at 7 o'clock here in the boardroom. Thursday, August 22nd,
August 12th.
August 12th. I don't know. There's too many twos on that there. Thursday, August 12th, 2021, first day, instructional day of the 2021-2022 school year. In just a moment, we will be adjourning to closed session where we will discuss Public Employee Discipline Dismissal Release Complaint, Government Code 54957, Conference with Labor Negotiators, Government Code Section 54957.6, and conference with real property negotiators, Government Code 54956.8. Do I have a motion?
Move to adjourn to closed session.
Second.
On a motion by Trustee Olson and seconded by Trustee Boulay, all in favor?
Aye.
We are now adjourned to closed session. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Here.